Hello, everybody. I'm sure you're aware that dreams are commonly strange and mysterious. They are the language of the soul, which is the consciousness within you. Like anything about human beings, there is, to this very day, no scientific consensus as to why we dream or what the mechanism by which we dream is. The materialists write dreams off as brain phenomena and put no stock in them as anything but the bubbling of the mind that occasionally bursts through into one's sphere of awareness. Aboriginal people and countless native tribes throughout history respected dreams as very relevant and significant sources of information, often life-saving information. The Aboriginal people tended to meet in the morning around the campfire and share their dreams, and what they were most interested in is commonalities amongst their dreams. For example, if 3 dreams all suggested that animals that they could eat showed up in the same place, they would take that seriously and go there. Sigmund Freud, the founder of Freudian psychology, respected dreams as important and was one of the first psychiatrists to take dreams seriously and develop approaches to dream analysis. Carl Jung put dreams at the center of his system of depth psychology. Jungian analysts receive extensive training on dream analysis, which also requires a deep understanding of symbology, archetypes, mythology, metaphor, allegory, fairy tales, the spirit, soul, personal unconscious, collective unconscious, and the life process. Mythologist Joseph Campbell states that myths are public dreams and dreams are private myths. A statement that only reaches its full meaning when one understands what a myth is. James Carse, professor of theology and philosophy for 38 years at New York University, stated that a myth is a story that tells itself. You might want to meditate on that. Dreams are the silence that speaks through our soul when we are unconscious and sound asleep, and myths are the stories we tell ourselves each day, to each other and to ourselves, to try to make meaning of our lives. Myths often come as dreams, and dreams often become authors of our myths, the stories we tell ourselves about who we are and why we are here, and the stories we tell our children and our people so we don't forget who we are and what our place is in the world. I have studied many systems of dream interpretation and used dream analysis as part of my work as a therapist to help people heal for well over 20 years. I have carefully watched and analyzed my own dreams and found them to be an invaluable source of deep inner guidance and wisdom. I have worked with countless patients and clients to analyze their dreams. Many I have worked with have often been shocked and amazed at what their dreams are telling them, often so shocked at the accuracy of their dreams that major life changes were taken. Often changes that were long overdue and they wished they had paid more attention to long ago. Today we have special guests that are students of my Spirit Gym mentorship training program, which you can learn about at myspiritgym.com. My students are so committed to their own personal, professional, and spiritual growth and that of humanity that they have agreed to share their dreams and my analysis process with you in hopes that you may learn and be inspired to develop a deeper relationship with your own spirit soul, which I personally believe is the aspect of us that communicates via dreams. The key reason that we dream is that the spirit soul has important information that it cannot get past the firewall of the ego or its fears and control dramas. Before we begin the live dream assessment today, I'd like to share some essential information about dreams. There are different types of dreams. A big dream is a dream that does not happen very frequently, but it is usually a life-changing event. They can be so earth-shaking that it could result in the change of a career. It could result in a change in partnership or marriage, and many other such things, but they are big dreams. Prophetic dreams are dreams that tell us about something potentially coming or something that we need to return to so that we don't derail in some way. Prophetic dreams are very real, and there's no better explanation of the power of a prophetic dream than the 9/11 event when the Twin Towers and related buildings came down. I saw a documentary which was interesting because it interviewed quite a number of people that did not go to work that day, that worked in the Twin Towers, because they had a very powerful dream the night before the Twin Towers went down, in which they were told not to go to work the following day. Each of them explained the intensity of the dream and how they made the decision not to go to work, and how grateful they were that the dream had literally saved their life. There are visionary dreams, which are similar to a vision quest, where we see things that help us understand our life and often our direction in life, or have a sense of who we are and what we came to do in the world. There are dreams from the soul to support individuation and healing. Individuation is the process of growing through the different stages of consciousness, from toddler, adolescent, to child, to young adult, to mature, self-actuated person with an ego, to someone that can mature into a wise man or a wise woman, to the elderly and those that inform us about our potential death. And there are dreams for healing. There are dreams that help us overcome our greatest fears. There are dreams that are the answers to big questions that we have at any given time in our life. There are dreams about who we are and who we are to become in life, which would be akin to a visionary dream. There are dreams that attempt to fulfill our unfulfilled desires. For example, Osho says if you are hungry, you will dream about food. If you are broke, you will dream about money. And if you are horny, you will dream about sex. So essentially, these dreams are often telling us something about what it is that we perceive to be missing. We may not be conscious of what it is, but our unconscious knows. It always knows. We may be unhappy, for example, in our marriage, and see that there is no way to resolve the partnership. And part of us may be committed to our children and to the convention of marriage, yet a deeper part of us may deeply desire a partner that is more attuned to us and in harmony with the life we want to live, so our dreams can respond to that desire. There are dreams that inform us that we have something wrong with our body, such as a cancer or something growing in the body, or an illness or a disease. And the dreams are trying to inform us as to what we need to do, or at least to be aware of, so that we can do something about it and hopefully avoid death. And finally, there are defragmentation dreams. Defragmentation dreams are a concept that we use as an analogy to a computer. Many of you have had the experience of when you've had a lot of windows open or been using your computer for quite a long time without shutting it off, it begins to act strange. Windows don't open or close, things get hung up. And so the computer needs a defragmentation, which often it does when you shut it off and restart it. A defragmentation dream has unique characteristics, and if you think of your mind as being too overloaded, too many tasks going on, too many things that you're mulling over or stressing or fretting over, or just too many activities going on, or a combination of all of these things, then when we dream and dreams that are defragmentation dreams come, they are often very strange and segmented and broken, like 5 or 6 movies playing at once, or like trying to watch many TV screens at once. You can have dreams that are all of a sudden showing 1 or 2 images or a scenery, and boom, something else pops up, and then something else pops up. And it's just like you cannot make any sense of them. If you tried to write them down, it would just be a bunch of broken sentences and paragraphs that wouldn't make any sense. Those are the classic hallmarks of what I call a defragmentation dream. People have those quite often. There are many debates on where our dreams come from. Here is what my personal explorations and research into this topic have concluded. Dreams are the language of the highest self, which is your spirit. And they are also the language of the soul. The highest self and the spirit work in tandem or in concert with the unconscious. So dreams can come from the unconscious, which has too many levels to explain in this intro. Dreams are often messages directly from the body. Dreams can be messages from others here and on the other side, those who have passed over. Dreams can be messages from the collective unconscious, which represents the people and the beings of nature throughout the world, and the needs of or messages of the collective, which is the collective unconscious. Dreams can be messages from beings in other dimensions of a vast variety, be they astral, archetypal, mental, etc. Dreams can be the brain going through defragmentation, as I've previously explained. Effective dream analysis requires a tremendous wealth of knowledge, wisdom, and experience. Effective dream analysis depends on the interpreter's ability to remove and put aside his or her own isms, ideologies, biases, and filters, or they will be unable to accurately assess a dream. For example, someone doing dream analysis that is a born-again Christian that thinks everybody must take Jesus as their savior will have a very hard time doing an effective dream interpretation on anybody that is not of the same bias. A comprehensive understanding of symbology and related fields of study is important for dream analysis because the soul and spirit tend to speak symbolically, not literally. The participation of the dreamer is very, very important. You cannot decode dreams with a dream dictionary. That is a fantasy. That's like thinking you can run your life by using the astrological reading in a newspaper or the guidance from fortune cookies. There's no way to interpret a dream, no matter how skilled the analyst is, without being able to talk directly to the dreamer for all the reasons you will experience in this podcast. That said, a skilled person in the field of dream analysis can look at a dream without the participant if it's written down and use symbology and other aspects of dream interpretation to get a fairly good idea, but they will never be able to check to see if the dream is authentically interpreted without the feedback of the dreamer, which is why my students and guests are here today, because I could take a crack at their dreams and probably do better than a lot of people would at dream interpretation, but I wouldn't be able to ask them the key questions that you will hear me ask them today. Dream analysis also requires a patient or client that is genuinely open to exploring their fears, their highest potentials, their life circumstances, their unhealed wounds, and the darkest recesses of themselves. This podcast will give you a preview of what anyone interested in dream analysis or dream interpretation can learn in my upcoming dream interpretation workshop. Before we begin, it is essential to keep in mind that the first principle of dream analysis is that everyone and everything in a dream represents some aspect of yourself. There are a few exceptions, such as prophetic dreams, but this principle should always be our first principle of dream analysis. With that stated, as a preface, let's begin dream analysis with our guest today. You know, enzymes are one of the most important things we can use to supplement our diet. Very few people have normal levels of digestive enzymes. It's extremely common to be digestive enzyme deficient because so many people are eating cooked foods, processed foods, packaged foods, etc. The best digestive enzymes I've ever found are Masszymes by Bioptimizers. And one of the things I like about them is not only are they the most advanced technology for how they're produced, the science behind them, but I take them on an empty stomach every morning and every night as proteolytic enzymes to help clean my body. So I've got Wade here, who's the formulator of these enzymes, to tell us how do they work as digestive and proteolytic enzymes, because today I think we really need to be supplementing with high quality enzymes. So, Wade, what's unique about masszymes?
Well, one of the interesting things is undigested protein is one of the biggest contaminants that cause problem for people, whether it's in their blood or inflammatory conditions or even impairing recovery. And it's quite common amongst athletes who have high protein diets, interesting enough, who are looking to add recovery, but they're not breaking down their protein effectively. And that was my case way back in the day as a former bodybuilding champion. So we set about cultivating and developing an enzyme formulation that handled all of the amino acids in a pH range from 2 to 12, as well as providing an assortment of assistant enzymes. In other words, it doesn't just break down protein, it handles carbohydrates, it handles fats, it handles fibers, a variety of different things, and they work synergistically together to make sure that you can break down just about any food and digest it properly. Now, when you talk about the difference between enzymes, there's digestive enzymes and systemic enzymes. Systemic enzymes such as like nattokinase or serrapeptase. Well, they don't help break down digestion, but they can break down inflammation or inflammatory conditions, undigested proteins, or scarring tissue inside the body. Well, it turns out when you take masszymes on an empty stomach, it works exactly the same way. It will go into the bloodstream and now works as a systemic enzyme, reducing inflammation, accelerating recovery times. Matt just tore his Achilles tendon and made a full recovery after surgery within a few weeks, which they expected for many months. He was taking as many as 100 a day. Now, I'm not suggesting people do that, but this was an extreme condition. And the bottom line is masszymes is great for recovery, for cleaning up undigested proteins in the system, as well for digesting just about any meal. If this isn't the best digestive enzyme or systemic enzyme that you've ever taken, you get your money back. That's the Bioptimizer guarantee.
Spirit Gym with Paul Chek listeners can get 15% off their purchase of masszymes by going to bioptimizers.com/Spirit Gym and use the code PAUL15 at checkout. You can choose from 3 different sizes, and in addition, Bioptimizers always have special bonus gifts and additional savings when you get multiple bottles. So go to bioptimizers.com/Spirit Gym and check out masszymes.
All right, well, our first guest today is Spirit Gym practitioner Pablo Echeverria. And if I tortured your name, Pablo, forgive me. What I'd like to do and what I'll do for each of them is one of the most important aspects of dream analysis is to understand the context of a person's life at the time the dream happened, because dreams are, as I said in the intro, often telling us things that the soul or the spirit can't get past the firewall of the ego or the shadow nature of somebody. In other words, there's things that need to be brought into conscious awareness, but for some reason they're afraid to know or they don't want to know. So to lay the foundation for looking at dreams, I will have each of the guests today tell me what's going on in their life at the time of the dream. So Pablo, give us an overview. Your dream that you shared is quite recent, isn't it?
Yeah, it's from May. We're in August now.
Okay, so has anything significant changed in your life between now and the time that you recorded the dream?
Well, my life is pretty changeable. Like all the time it's changing. I live traveling as a digital nomad, so I'm kind of always surrounded by different people, different things. So in a way, yes, things have changed. In another way, no, because I have been living this way for the past 5 years.
Right. Well, what I mean is you haven't had any announcements of disease or financial crisis.
No.
Okay, that's what I'm talking about. What was going on in your life at the time that the dream occurred? If you could say what was significant, potentially challenging or stressful, something that you would say that you might tell a doctor if the doctor was trying to figure out why you weren't feeling well, for example?
So At that time, when I had the dream, we were with my partner in Guatemala, and we had my mom visiting to us. So I hadn't seen her in about 6 months, and for the last 10 years, I see her maybe once a year. So maybe that was the most stressing part of what I was living at that time, because she triggers me a lot.
Oh, yeah, right. Okay. That's pretty standard.
Yeah, yeah, and actually the dream, it's about my something related to my mom. So that's why I'm sharing this. It's part of the
Yes.
an important thing. Another important thing that was going on in my life, and it's still going on, it's that at the end of this year, I'm gonna stop living as a digital nomad, and I will settle down in Chile, my country, with my partner. So we're gonna build a home. It's kind of a big thing for us, because since we know each other, we have been traveling around. We have never been in one place established for a while.
Right.
So that's another important thing, that it's kind of, it's a big commitment for both of us.
Well, let's just start with that. And so here's what I'm going to do, and what isn't typically done in dream analysis. Let's just start with what you've just shared as though it was a dream. What most people don't realize is that we're actually living a dream. And what we think of as our waking state is often actually very dreamlike. And for those that have had a lucid dream, such as a sexual dream that resulted in orgasm, or a dream that scared them to death, when they woke up, they actually often report feeling that the dream was a more lucid state or a higher state of consciousness than they experience in their waking state. The same is true of deep plant medicine ceremonies. Countless people, including myself, have had experiences where they realize that coming back into the body actually feels like you're less awake and conscious than when you're in the ceremonial experience. So if you take what you've just said, your mother's visiting for the first time in a long time, and you're approaching a career shift where you're not going to be traveling so much, and you're going to be able to live with your partner in a more stable situation, and it sounds like somewhere you want to be. If you looked at that as a dream, how might that change your perception of things? What might be relevant to you from a dream perspective?
My unconscious is telling me that I need some stability, that maybe moving around so much is what makes me tired, because I'm just kind of doing the parallel of my mom visiting me while I'm traveling, and that triggers me. It's basically, I am traveling, so I'm triggered because of that, in a way. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. You're just hypersensitive.
Yeah, I think that's what I would say.
Okay, so we'll just keep that in our hat as we go here. So now, why don't you go ahead and read the dream that you submitted to me, and then what I'll do is I'll take you through it step by step, now that we have a sense of what's going on in your life and your relationship with your mother, and then the dream will come into context. So go ahead and read the dream.
So I was talking with an old friend. I felt indebted to him because of the distance that has grown between us over the past few years. We were starting to catch up, and I was telling him what I had been up to. I began talking to him about Chek and what I was learning about tarot. I wanted to show him and explain how the tarot is connected to the development of our psyche. For that, I wanted to show him the sequence of the major arcanas. In the scene, my aunt and my mom appeared. My mom had gotten some major arcana stickers. I wanted her to give them to me so I could show them to my friend, but I couldn't get her to do it. My mom kept going in circles in the conversation. She and my aunt were laughing. They were talking about going to get bigger stickers. I was very frustrated with them, for not giving me the stickers. I decided to use my own tarot deck, but the deck was disorganized. Cards were missing. Some cards weren't even there. One card was wet. My aunt and my mom kept treating the whole thing like it was a joke, and I was really pissed off.
Okay. As you're probably aware, and as I said in the introduction, there are many facets to and approaches to dream interpretation. Remember, the first thing that we always want to keep in mind in doing dream analysis is that everyone and everything in the dream is an aspect of Pablo, of yourself. So in the dream, your friend shows up. What would you say your friend represents within you?
I think he represents the relationships that I have with many old friends. And I can give you more context about that. So I left my country 10 years ago. I changed a lot during those 10 years. So I have built a big distance with many friends.
Right.
So this friend in particular is kind of representing all that distance with many of my friends.
What aspect of yourself do you feel that your mother represents?
Probably my feminine side.
Okay, good. And how about your aunt?
I don't know. I see my aunt and my mom kind of the same thing. They're so similar. So
That's fine. What would the major arcana represent? The major arcana of tarot represent within you?
I guess the major archetypes that guide my life, unconsciously or consciously.
Yeah, a simple way to put that is they represent your psyche, the key functions of the psyche. So just think of them as the psyche. What do stickers represent?
Maybe a reminder, like having a sticker remind you about something.
Yeah.
Whether you're a fitness professional, healthcare specialist, or just a regular human being, I'm sure you've seen this. Someone who seems to be training hard and eating right, and yet they still can't shift those excess pounds, build muscle, or make progress on their health goals. It's like they're trapped in a hamster's wheel, running on the spot and getting nowhere, stuck in their stress, pain, and bewilderment about why they're not getting the results they think they should. The problem? Most people are only considering one or two aspects of health and wellness, and yet the human body is a complex system of systems. That's why the Chek Institute created the Chek Academy, a complete education in holistic health, exercise, and lifestyle coaching. If you're ready to make the leap into a new career, or perhaps seeking more advanced skills to enhance your current work, the Chek Academy is the path. In year 1, you'll go deep into holistic lifestyle coaching level 1, integrated movement science level 1, our new scientific core conditioning course, and much more, learning how to really help yourself and others thrive. You can study from your own home or join the Chek faculty at locations around the world for a combination of online and in-person courses. Enrollment is open now, but spaces are limited and the spots do fill up quickly. Head to chek.group/Chek Academy and submit your application before September the 30th. That's chek.group/CHEK Academy.
Now, let's look at the dream from this perspective. I'm going to share some different perspectives that fit in with this as we go. So in this scene, Betty, my aunt, and mom appeared. In Jungian analysis, if there is a male dreaming of a woman, the first thing one is supposed to think of or investigate is what's called the anima for the male. You are familiar with that from our conversations in Spirit Gym. For the listeners, if you're a male, then your soul takes on a feminine nature. If you're a female, then your soul takes on a masculine nature, which is called the animus in Jungian psychology. The reason is the soul itself is an expression of God, which is unconditional love. So if the body, the physical projection, is a male, it's got a relative positive charge, and therefore the soul must have a negative charge to counterbalance the positive, which equals zero or unconditional love. So from a dream analysis perspective, in the scene, Betty, his aunt, and his mother appear, and they're both women, but you notice that your mother triggers you. Does Betty trigger you like that, your aunt?
Not as much as my mom, but
Okay.
yes, in a way, yes.
Okay.
Both of them have a very disorganized life.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things that trigger me about them is that. So probably when you ask me what does represent about yourself, it's when I have that kind of behavior, it's kind of that's me, right? So I also have some disorganized behavior in my life.
Yeah,
So
good.
they are showing me that.
That's great. That's where I was going to go next. So you got there all by yourself. See, okay, if Betty represents the anima and she is somewhat like your mother, and your mother's your mother, right? And remember, the soul is relationships top to bottom. So you can't extract the experience of your mother or even your aunt from your soul without leaving a gaping hole inside of you. For example, if I could wave a magic wand and take your mother's influence out of you, you wouldn't even know who you were. You would really be lost. You'd be like someone had cut such a huge chunk of your mind out. You would be like, I don't even know who I am. The way you'd behave would be so radically different. Your feeling nature would change. Everything about you would change. So one of the key things for everybody to keep in mind is that the soul is relationships. This is why divorces are so painful, because even when we think we don't like somebody, the loss of them can create a very deep wound that often takes at least a year to heal for most people, because we have to figure out how we can find a source of connection and meaning to anchor ourselves where that relationship once was, and that can take quite a while. If we look at this in the scene, the aspects of my soul and possibly my shadow that have appeared represent my own challenge with my feminine nature and the disorganizing aspects of myself that my conscious mind gets irritated by. Remember, the soul is trying to get a message to you that the firewall of the ego can't get past. So the conscious mind of Pablo probably has this very organized, methodical way of doing things. But when things don't follow the plan, do you find yourself feeling triggered?
In the past, yes, a lot. Nowadays, not so much. I think I have really connected with my feminine side during the last 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, I have a lot of work to do as everybody, but I will say the old Pablo wanted to have everything perfect and everything planned.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, there is still a part of me that behaves that way, but not as much as in the past.
Okay, so remember that a change in the past few years is still very superficial in the structure of your consciousness, and the habit patterns of relating and the relationship with people like mother and aunt go all the way back early in your life. So those tendencies still are active in your unconscious, in your personal unconscious. So as a therapist, what I would say is the dream is saying to you that right now, maybe there's a lot going on in your life and it feels like a lot to handle. But at some level, you need to be aware that it can be triggering to you and make you feel stressed. That would be my first assumption.
Okay.
Then you said, I wanted her to give them to me, the major arcana stickers, So I could show them to my friend, but I couldn't get her to do it. Are you speaking about your mother or?
My mother.
So this aspect of your self, your feminine nature, it would suggest there's something that you need from your feminine nature, but you can't get it. You're having a hard time getting it. If you were to just take a moment to look inside yourself and say, if there was something I could use more that would bring more balance in my life from my feminine side, what would that be?
Probably feel more.
Okay, so feeling, more of your feeling capacity, which is hard to access if you're busy and you're on the move.
Go deeper in the feeling, I will say.
Okay, so from the soul's perspective, the dream would be saying you're doing too much, you're juggling too much, and that's stopping you from getting into your feeling nature, because the masculine energy is like an arrow flying. The feminine energy is like a circle. So it's very hard to get an arrow to change directions once it's on the move. It flies straight at its target. So the dream is suggesting, in my opinion, to slow down where you can, even if it's just take a few minutes a day to just anchor yourself in some quiet, possibly take more time to, well, listen to your feelings in that quiet, but also even maybe take more time to be with your partner who's feminine, because by being with a woman who has a tendency to live more from her feminine nature, it makes it easier for you to do it, just like it's easier to go into deep meditation when you're with someone who is very skilled at meditation, like an instructor. Then Mom kept going in circles in the conversation. She and Betty were laughing. They were talking about going to get bigger stickers. I was very frustrated for them not giving me the stickers. But remember, these stickers represent things you've got to remember, and they are the major arcana, okay? So the major arcana being the key functions of the psyche that make meaning, it suggests to me that in some way you feel like you're going in circles with certain aspects of your life, and that is stopping you from being able to get a direct connection to and communication with the aspects of the psyche represented by the major arcana. What is your birth and soul path in tarot? Are your personality and soul path?
It's strength.
They're both strength.
Strength, both.
And the theme of that is, as you know, letting the soul learn to guide the ego and not being so ego-driven. For those listening, I don't mean to make that sound like Pablo's an ego person, but our ego simply is the conscious perception of ourselves that we tend to think is who we really are, but is often very dangerously misleading. So to review that part of the dream is referring to major arcana stickers. Stickers are things you need to remember. And tarot number 8, for those of you that are not familiar with tarot, the Rider-Waite tarot, which is what we use classically in my teachings, is showing a woman holding a lion's mouth open. And she's doing it out of love, and above her head is an infinity symbol, which represents the divine feminine. And the fact that this woman can grab a lion by the mouth and open its mouth and he stays calm without eating her is a fact that love and connection are more powerful than force. But you can only get the soul to have that effect on the ego by having the time to relate to it. So the dream would suggest that some of Pablo's frustration, either with himself or with his life circumstances, relates to the fact that he may not have enough time to spend with his soul, and that can be frustrating for a person who has a genuine interest in their own spiritual development.
It makes a lot of sense because when I had that dream, I had been traveling for 2 months non-stop, staying 1 week in each place.
Right.
So I was very tired. And I don't only travel but for pleasure, I'm also working the entire week. So I was working during the week, maybe enjoying one day in the weekend, and the other and on Sunday I will travel for, I don't know, 8 hours in the road and crossing borders. So yeah, I was very tired. And actually, since then, I've been more stable. I've been in like 1 month here, 1 month here, 2 weeks here. So not traveling or not moving that much as I was doing at that time.
And have your dreams changed in this period?
I hadn't dreamed much actually. Yeah, it's curious. I'm not a guy that I'm not a guy that remember much his dreams.
Mm-hmm.
At that time, I was working. I was kind of working diligently on my dreams, and I was taking notes of them in the morning when I remember one.
Mm-hmm.
So that really helped me to remember the dreams. But if I think about now, I hadn't I hadn't dreamed much.
Good. Well, that means that maybe the slower schedule is allowing you to have a deeper sense of connection to your feelings and to your soul. That's what I would interpret that to say. And so the soul's not having to send you messages to get your attention.
Matcha has been in the news recently amidst its rising popularity, which has put a bit of a strain on the global supply of the tea. But one thing you can be sure of with Peak's Sun Goddess Matcha, you are getting one-of-a-kind, 100% organic, ceremonial grade matcha, crafted for those who seek the highest purity, quality, and its powerful health benefits. It's made by third-generation tea masters using 130-year-old techniques, where it is hand-harvested from the first tender leaves of spring and shaded for a 35% longer period than the norm. This gives Peak's matcha maximum potential to produce antioxidants, chlorophyll, and L-theanine. Sun Goddess Matcha is grown in Kagoshima, Japan, a pristine region known for its volcanic soil, lush valleys, and natural purity. In fact, legend has it that the great sun goddess Amaterasu appeared at a sacred volcano within sight of these very tea gardens, blessing the land with her pure, radiant light. The very soil that nourishes Peak's tea is infused with her energy, enriched by the volcanic earth and bathed in the golden glow of the sun. Peak Sun Goddess Matcha is a firm favourite here at the Chek household, with its traditional umami flavour, creamy rich taste, and a gentle energy boost without the usual caffeine jitters. Simply whisk a sachet with warm water and add your choice of sweetener and milk for a delicious latte, or pour over ice for a refreshing iced matcha. Right now, you can get 20% off for life, plus a free starter kit with your first order. This includes a rechargeable frother and a glass beaker, so you can create your own matcha ceremony at home. Go to peaklife.com/Paul Chek. That's PIQUE life.com/Paul Chek.
In your dream, you say Mom kept going in circles in the conversation. She and Betty were laughing. So, that going in circles in the conversation is kind of like you moving from place to place all the time and not being able to calm and center yourself. And Mom and Betty were laughing, which is almost as though to say your soul thinks it's funny that you're so busy that you don't have time to be with yourself. And so to put that in context, the soul is very aware of what the ego is and what the ego's function is, but it's also very aware that you will ultimately need to grow beyond the ego in order to become who you came to the world to be. Because the ego is made out of everybody else's ideas, usually strongly our parents' ideas and our programming from school, but very little of a person's ego has anything to do of their own creation, right? So for me as a therapist and a person who's been on this journey, I always find it amazing that much of what people say to me and tell me that they want and what they're going to do is coming from their ego. But with my skills and abilities to sit there and talk to their own soul while they're talking to me, I often get a very different picture from their soul. And oftentimes they're, as Joseph Campbell says, they spend their whole life climbing the career ladder only to get to the top and realize it's leaning against the wrong wall, because they're not really doing what they came to do. They're doing what they've been programmed to do. And so oftentimes there's a health crisis that comes to ground them, so they have to listen more deeply to their inner self before they wake up to the fact that what they're pursuing isn't really authentically what they came to the world to do, okay? So the way I interpret that aspect of your dream is that your soul is getting a chuckle out of you doing all this running around, because in some way, metaphorically, you're doing what you think you got to do to make a living, or what you once thought was the right thing to do or felt like the good thing to do, but it's probably not at all what you came to the world to do. How does that sit with you?
That makes sense. Yeah, I think so. I travel not for making a living. I travel for like knowing the world and expand my vision, and of course, I don't know, I love to travel. I love to meet new people, new places. Mm-hmm. But I think this period it's kind of over. So I need to really transition to a more stable lifestyle, mm-hmm, to really grow my business and grow my impact, because I've always I've always have known that I'm here to do great things. Mm. But now traveling so much, I don't have the energy to do great things.
Well, the other thing is you've already clearly stated it. Your intention to travel, to explore other cultures and learn new things has been subverted by the fact that you're so busy. And so the dream is suggesting that it's stopping you from having the time and the inner space to more deeply connect to your soul and get the guidance that you need to unfold the legacy that you came here with within your soul. What do you come here to really do? Okay. Mm-hmm. So she and Betty were laughing. They were talking about going to get bigger stickers. Why would you get a bigger sticker?
I have no idea what's that, but it was part of the dream. I will say, I don't know, a bigger reminder.
Exactly. The bigger sticker means your soul is trying to get your attention and say, hey, you know what? You need to slow down a little bit because I can't get my message to you. So we need bigger stickers. Remember, the stickers relate to the major arcana. And so I spoke to you about your soul path because that's the most important of all the major arcana. But when you look at all the major arcana, the Hierophant can represent the wise counsel inside of you. The magician can represent, are you really creating the magic you want to create in your life, or are you doing what you once thought was magic in your life, but now it's not so magical? So I could go through all the major arcana, but you see, because you're dreaming about the major arcana, it means you're dreaming about the most fundamental aspects of your life, and somehow you need big stickers to get reoriented to these things. I was getting frustrated for them not giving me the big stickers. Well, that kind of tells a story all by itself.
No, not for not giving me the big stickers. I wanted her to give me whatever she has. Uh-huh. But they were like, I don't know, talking about other things and laughing around, and no, we're going to get bigger stickers. And I was like, please don't give me bigger stickers. Give me whatever you have.
So that would translate into you saying to your soul in the dream, just give me what you have. And your soul is in this process of getting bigger stickers. And so your soul is saying, you can't even handle what I've given you, so I got to get you a bigger sticker to pay attention. And you're saying, give me what you have. And she's saying, yeah, but how about paying attention to the most important thing, which is me? Not the stickers. Okay. So then you say, I decided to use my own tarot deck, but when I tried to organize it to pull the major arcana cards together, I couldn't. The deck was disorganized. Well, what does that say?
Part of my life is disorganized, or I have the tools, but I'm not using them well.
And I can't organize them to create what I came to create. I can't get the flow. So you see, your feeling function is trapped up in this frustration, which is symbolized by your mother triggering you. And you said Betty's similar to your mother. So you've got a double trigger on you, right? A double tickler, if you will, something saying, hey, pay attention, okay? The deck was disorganized. Cards were missing, okay? What do you think it means if you go to use your tarot deck and cards are missing? What does that say right away?
I'm not in touch with certain aspects of myself.
Right. That means that there are, every card in the deck is very important symbolically. You know that from all our training. So if there's cards are missing, it means there's parts of yourself that you're not accessing. The dream would say there's key parts of yourself that are not missing, and you don't know it until you go look. Once you look through the deck, you went, oh my God, cards are missing. And this is why your soul is shall we say, pestering you about this with this dream. What this suggests to me as a therapist, Pablo, is I have to ask you a question. Which cards are missing, if we stick with the major arcana, in your life right now? If I said, I'm going to wave a magic wand and I'm going to hand you any major arcana, but once you touch it, that will become much more active in your psyche and in your life. Which of the major arcana do you feel are missing in your life right now?
I will go with the first one that popped in my mind, which is the Emperor.
Okay, and that's the principle of organization, creating your kingdom and managing the elemental energies to create what you want in your life. But you're working towards that, aren't you?
I am.
Good. Some cards weren't even tarot cards. What would that suggest to you? I'm just curious.
I don't know. It just came to my mind, but maybe I'm still holding to things that do not serve me anymore.
Well, that's
I have things in my deck that shouldn't be there.
Right. Very good. That would have been my own interpretation if it was me looking at this dream as my own. But some cards weren't even tarot cards. To me, suggests that you still have aspects in your life that you're trying to outgrow that aren't really fundamental to your life path right now. And so those would be like someone took pictures of you a year ago and stuffed them in your tarot deck, and you said, wait a minute, that's outdated. I need to deal with what's going on right now. So if you look back at when you first started to engage in this travel approach to your life, how long ago was that? Didn't you say 5 or 6 years ago?
So 5 years living, like traveling like all the time, but before that I lived for about 5 years in Panama. I'm from Chile. So 10 years since I left my country, 5 years since I'm in the road.
Okay, well, since the major challenge in your life that relates to the dream is moving all the time and not having a stable place to be, how has your orientation toward what's meaningful and important in your life changed in the last 5 years relative to now?
So many things. So the relationship with my partner has dramatically improved. Before that, I used to have another partner and we were fighting all the time. And well, we broke up. Then I met Iria, which is my partner now. We start to have issues at the beginning of the relationship, and I realized that I really needed to work through them because I was all the time externalizing things like, is her fault? kind of thing.
Projecting.
And I worked through things. Yeah, I was projecting a lot, and I worked through with my shadow and with all this shit, and it really, really, really helped the relationship. So that's a big thing. The other big change that I had is that before starting to traveling, I was working in the corporate world, in a like multinational as a financial analyst. I quit my job and I started to work as a health coach, stress mastery coach. That is how I call it. So changing from being an employee to be an entrepreneur, and for working to a thing that I was not at all aligned, to working in something that I'm very, very aligned. So that's a big change.
Great. So this is all sort of, leading to a greater awareness of what the dream's telling you. One of the cards was wet. What does that suggest to you?
Maybe they're part of myself that are kind of drowning.
Possibly.
Like, I don't know, maybe with so many things or expectations, like drowning in my own, maybe, I don't know, psyche.
Could be. If you want something to grow, what do you usually got to put on it?
Okay. Okay.
Hi, everybody. Have you ever wondered why your blood is red? It's because it's full of oxygen and life force. It's what keeps you going. But what if I could tell you about something else that's red that will add more life force and keep you going? And if you start with a red juice before you have coffee or tea and wait a few minutes, you might find that you either don't need the coffee or the tea, or you need less of it. But this time, instead of getting coffee and tea, you got a lot of nutrition and a lot of great stuff for stress management and detoxification. And it's so important. I got Drew Cannoli. It took me 2 years to get him to come hang out with me and talk about this. I said, Drew, tell me more about your red juice. And he is right here to tell us what is on with your red juice. My kids love it. Everybody I know loves it.
Well, I love that we have it for kids, because when I was a kid, there was this big red dude that would burst through a brick wall, and he was like, oh, yeah. And he would feed me a glass of 50 grams of sugar, giving most people diabetes, ADHD, addiction, obesity, all the things, right? So when we created red, it was, what's the alternative? If we could create something that could create lasting stamina, lasting energy, and then we started to look at our ancient ancestors. We talk about the Vikings, the people that were rowing across the oceans for days to go to war. What were they taking? Well, they were taking rhodiola. Rhodiola is in our red juice. And then we were like, okay, so out of all the mushrooms, what's one of the best medicinal mushrooms that can give us long-lasting energy? We found cordyceps. Cordyceps are absolutely amazing. Not just any cordyceps or rhodiola, glyphosate residue-free and organic. And how can we make it taste better than how do we make it taste better than that without the sugar? We added a little monk fruit.
Monk fruit's amazing.
And we found the best berries on the planet. Berries in high amounts, which we have in the red juice, actually help increase stem cell creation in your body. What's better than that for our little ones and for us? And so many people are just lethargic. They're lacking energy. What could we do for that? Red juice in the afternoon, 2 p.m. rolls around, instead of a nap, instead of the coffee, drink the red juice. You're going to feel so much better.
Well, if you need the nap, take the nap if you can, but then take the red juice to kick you back into gear.
Exactly. I love naps, and I love coffee.
I do too, but I love to make sure I got the nutrition in me first. You know, the other thing is berries are a natural stimulant to the adrenal glands. So if people would do a little red juice before they do coffee and tea, they would pick themselves up naturally, except this time they're bringing in nutrition. And unfortunately, coffee blocks almost every vitamin and mineral you can put in your mouth. So hey, there you have it, right from the man himself.
To try Organifi's red juice and get 20% off your order, go to Organifi.com/Chek20 and use the promo code Chek20 at checkout. That's Organifi.com/CHEK20, and the promo code is CHEK20 for a 20% discount.
So, you see, the wet card caught your attention, didn't it?
Yep.
So it symbolically is saying, look here, I'm unusual. I'm not like any of the other cards. I'm wet. Water symbolizes connection and it symbolizes consciousness. If you look at many of the creation myths throughout history, from tribes all around the world and native peoples, and I've looked at countless creation myths. Almost all of them talk about, in the beginning, there was some kind of a sea and there was chaos in it. And so this is the beginning of something being created out of consciousness. That's symbolically what that represents. But the wet card is drawing your attention, drawing your consciousness, and saying, look at me, this is what we need to grow. Do you have any idea at all what the wet card was, which one it was?
No idea.
Okay, well, why don't you just close your eyes for a second, bring your attention to your heart, and just say to your soul and your heart, say, please give me an image of which tarot card was the wet one. What were you trying to tell me with the wet card? And see, without thinking, just receiving what comes into the mailbox, so to speak.
I got the Empress.
Empress, oh, and you're with the woman that you're growing with and wanting to settle down with. And the Empress represents the mother, your mother, and the mother of you. And it also represents the divine feminine, which is the feeling nature. So you see, the wet one is saying, hey, this is where we need to grow and put our attention. And you bring up the Empress, which is, quite in line with everything that's being said here. Then Betty and my mom kept treating the whole thing like it was a joke, and I was really pissed off. So if Betty represents your shadow and your mother represents your anima, and they're treating this like a joke, then what was pissing you off?
I don't know, maybe they were, my soul was reminding me to laugh at life and treat life as a joke. And part of, or my ego wasn't really accepting that, maybe.
Well, what I interpreted as the fact that you were getting pissed off is what made it funny. Because your soul is trying to give you what you ultimately want, but you're having a hard time manifesting it because you're too busy. So your soul's, in my interpretation, thinks that's funny, but she's very patient with you, like the patience of a mother. Kids are always getting in trouble. And so your soul and your shadow are both giving a giggle if we interpret Betty to be the shadow. That these are all, hypotheticals. So now that we've looked at the dream and broken it down, using this approach, because there's, as you know, many approaches, what do you think, in summary, the dream is saying to you with regard to the context of your life?
Take time to be with yourself. Stop moving so much around. Get settled. Build your foundations. In a way, like, I need more foundations for my business to grow. Don't do it only from a masculine side, from a rational side. Do it intuitively. Feel into it. Ask for help.
And the wet card?
Yeah, maybe. And keep really growing your relationship, because
with the feminine,
you need your partner. Yeah, you need your partner and your feminine side to really bring all that you are meant to bring into the world.
Yeah, the other aspect of this that's important that I want to point out is that if we use our intellect, our rational mind, our masculine aspect to guide our lives, then we run based on information and ideologies and what I should or shouldn't do, but we lose touch with our inner compass, which is our feeling nature. And, for example, if someone was to knock on your door right now and try to sell you on how much money you could make in a multi-level marketing program selling air filters, and they said, Pablo, you could make $1 million in 1 year and have the house of your dreams, what would your intuitive feeling voice tell you about that?
That's not the path.
Exactly. But you see, you have to feel, because the rational mind says, oh my God, look at that. In just a year, I could make $1 million, and think of all the things we could do or have. But this is how men often get very, very misled, and also women that are too animus driven, too masculine driven, get misled and don't listen to their feeling nature, which is really the deep connection to our soul, which is our inner compass. And so part of what I see the dream telling you is that not only do you need to find time to listen and feel inside of yourself as you're going through this shift in your life right now, but the shift in your life that you're working on is actually going to give you the time and the space to connect deeper to the divine feminine, not only within you, but within your relationship with your partner. And I predict that the outcome of that will actually be that your mother doesn't trigger you so much, because you're able to actually feel her authentic wants, feelings, and needs versus what she projects at you.
We'll see.
Yeah. I'll make a point for everybody listening that when you're doing a dream assessment or analysis, the hardest thing for the interpreter is not to try to sell the client or the subject on your interpretation. In other words, if I try to convince Pablo of what I think the dream means, then I'm not really doing dream analysis, I'm projecting. I'm trying to control him or, impress myself with how smart I am. But if the dream interpretation is accurate and it comes by way of this type of dialogue, there should be a sense in the dreamer of, yes, that's it. Like, it's like, it's like when you finally get the punchline of a joke. Oh my God, I got it. What took me so long? As we work through this and you now look back on what we've discussed, what is your inner sense of what we've concluded that this dream's most likely about?
Yeah, I really resonated with everything that you shared, so thank you for that. My expectation about the dream was completely different. I thought we were going into more into the relationship with my mother and the past with her, but everything that we have talked, it make much more sense based on what I'm living right now.
Yeah, I don't think the dream's really about your mother. I think that the parts of your mother that probably made you think the dream would be about your mother is really your own frustration that you're working through to get to the place that you want to be at, so that you and your partner can be more stable and you're not moving around all the time. And because for me, what I sense in you is the energy of a pot of water boiling, and that is too much energy for what your soul and what your heart's calling for right now. You don't want to be so busy, so hopped up and boiling all the time. You want to simmer, calm down, and relax a little bit more. Your conscious mind is putting mother in there because mother tends to agitate you, but that's a symbolic representation of your own inner, I would use the word frustration, just as a placeholder to say, I'm tired of traveling. I want to hold still and really have time to be with my partner and get deeper into myself and let my life unfold in this direction without so much boiling.
Yeah, makes total sense.
Yeah, it could be easy to run down the road of the mother thing, but I don't think that's why the dream's happening, because the dream's, back to the first principle of dreaming, everything in the dream is a piece of you. So if we were to look at the dream as being about your mother, then we would be literalizing the dream. Now it would be like you've written down a statement about why your mother frustrates you, but that's not how you interpret a dream. That's how you read a book or a complaint from somebody.
Yeah. Now, I have a question. Do you think that your soul in one single dream may be wanting to give you different messages? Like one, for example, in this case is related to my travels and to settle down and to calm down and all that thing. And another message is work through the relationship with your mother, for example?
It can be, dreams are multi-layered. They're not text messages. They're like a detective story that has, potentially multiple plots unfolding at the same time. But if you look at what we've been through, you can look at the literal aspects of it. My relationship with my mother and my aunt, that would be a literal. My use of, awareness of, and practice of the major arcana and what that represents in my life, and the fact that there's parts of my life that seem out of order would be another part. And then the other part would be there's cards missing in the deck and one of them's wet. And so the cards missing in the deck can be symbolic of the parts of my life that are missing, which is what I'm trying to put back in the deck by slowing down and getting a stable place to live. And the one that's wet is another story that's saying, pay attention to this card because this is the key. That's why it's wet. It's saying this part of you needs to grow. So you see the whole thing points to that, interestingly, to archetype 3, the divine feminine, the empress, which incorporates your mother, your soul nature, and your girlfriend all in one message, all of which need your attention.
Yeah. And
then there's another element to the joke, to the dream, which is the joking aspect of it. Hey, isn't this funny? You're winding yourself up about these things, but really, try to find some humor in it, and it won't be so stressful. Don't forget to laugh a little bit about it all, and get outside of yourself and say, look at me, I'm traveling all over the world, exactly what I wanted to do, but I don't have time to enjoy it.
Mm-hmm. All right, well, thank you.
Yeah, and hopefully what comes out of this is that you now have a better sense yourself of how to look at your own dreams and ways of approaching it. If you're interested in that, then I would consider my dream interpretation workshop, because it goes through many different approaches. Like I could sit here and do this with you for another 6 hours using different approaches. And at the end of 6 or 8 hours, say, okay, now which one of these seems to be the one that you say, that's the one I buy into the most? But my inner sense is that we already got to because the message of interpretation is quite coherent. It's a very beautiful fit to the realities of your life. It's not like we're going, that's kind of like when somebody reads your astrology report to you, and they're telling you this is who you are, but as you're listening, you go, well, that could be anybody. That's not, little pieces of me, but not really me. So you don't really get so excited and go, oh my God, my astrology reading says this and that. But, you kind of in the back of your mind, it's like, well, you could have said that about anybody. So you don't really get any movement out of it. But it seems to me from our exchange that the dream pointed right to the parts of your life that are most relevant right now. And so my point is, there would be no need to continue to do other approaches, because I don't think we're going to get any closer to the realities of what the dream's trying to tell you.
Yeah, makes sense.
All right, well, great job. I think we've gained a lot out of this. I enjoyed supporting you with this interpretation, Pablo, and I'm excited that you're going to get to slow down a little bit and have more connection to your partner and to your soul and your feeling nature. And I'm sure that more in your life path will unfold in that process of connecting And you will find out which cards are missing from the deck.
Yeah. Well, thank you for your time and energy and sharing your wisdom and knowledge with me. It's been great, very helpful.
Awesome. Well, I will look forward to seeing you in our next Spirit Gym Sangha. Should questions arise, bring them with you, and we will have great fun addressing them.
If you have listened to even one episode of Paul's podcast before, then you will know that he is passionate, and some would say even fanatical, about the quality of the food he eats and where it is sourced from. That is why the Chek household only eats pasture-raised meat, wild-caught fish, and organic produce. And that is why we subscribe to Wild Pasture's meat delivery service. Each month, Wild Pastures delivers a box of meat that has been raised by family farmers in the USA using regenerative farming practices. 100% grass-fed and finished beef, pasture-raised chicken, and pasture-raised pork, as well as wild-caught seafood. You can customize the selection in your box, add on extra when you know you will be feeding more people, or change your options each and every month. You might be thinking that this will be too expensive for you, but Wild Pasture's mission is to offer the highest quality meat at the lowest prices because they want to transform the meat industry. And that means that more people need to be able to choose meat that is raised right. Their pasture-raised animals are part of a natural ecosystem. Their farmers use rotational grazing, practices that mimic nature, and so do not need to use synthetic fertilizers, pesticides, herbicides, hormones, or antibiotics. This beautiful process doesn't require the external resources, such as massive amounts of GMO grain, required with environmentally depleting conventional methods. And best of all, the meat and fish taste amazing. And for Paul's listeners, Wild Pastures are offering you 20% off your subscription for life, $15 off your first order, and free shipping. Seriously, you can't find a better deal for top quality pasture-raised meat. Go to wildpastures.com/Paul Chek. You don't need a promo code. Just visit wildpastures.com/Paul Chek and start choosing the goodies you will have delivered to you in your first box.
Okay, Nicki, welcome.
Hi, Paul. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. So, Nicki, before we get into the dream, why don't you just give us the overview of the circumstances in your life at the time of the dream and in general, just so people have a context?
Absolutely. So I was undergoing my initiation illness at the time, and I believe that I was in the phase of facing my dark night of the soul. I had symbolically died and was learning a lot of lessons being channeled in through Source about what my illness was meant for and where I was going with it. And I had this dream as what I think might have been a prophetic message, helping me to transition from this symbolic death into a rebirth phase.
Great. So that lays the context for the dream. If you had to say what is uppermost in your life right now, what would that be?
I'm going to give a little bit more context in regards to that symbolic death. I was apartment searching at the time, just beginning an apartment search to move from some mold into an apartment where I could heal better and reduce my toxin bucket. And this dream, I believe, was key to helping me figure out that search to be able to move on from that death into a blank slate where I could truly heal and blossom. Since that dream and what's going on in my life right now, situationally, I'm in a home that is allowing me to homestead and have a deep connection with the earth, which is a huge component of my dream that I've crafted through my work in Spirit Gym. I'm recently married as well and growing with my partner and just learning through him. He has so many great lessons to teach me, and I feel like I'm finally coming on the other side of my initiation illness through, like you can see, I have clear skin right now, and I don't remember a time when I had clear skin. How I feel in my lab work. Just everything is so improved, and I feel like I'm coming into life and embodying my authentic self and who I was meant to be.
Awesome. Okay, so why don't you now go ahead and I'm just going to let you read the dream without any interruption or dialogue, and then we'll go back and I will start working through it with you.
I awake in a pristine white bedroom. I am lying in a pristine white bed, wearing a pristine white nightgown. I hear the calming sound of ocean waves out the bedroom window, and I believe the waves to be an iridescent white color. I become lucid in the dream and realize I am aware and intuit that I am not in a realm where I am alive. I feel as if I am in an quote unquote in between place. Despite the visually white surroundings, I perceive a balanced sense of darkness as well. I become terrified I have potentially died and have a panic attack in the dream, thrashing around in fear. I am not ready to cross over. The numbers 22323 flash before me. Then I turn in the bed to see my now husband, who was my boyfriend at the time, laying in the bed next to me. He props himself up and peers at me, but I notice his eyes are swirling like clouds, black and iridescent dark blue. I intuit this is not my husband, but a spirit or entity taking on his form, so I am less afraid. A low, booming voice speaks to me through him saying, "Don't worry, it is over."
Awesome. Cool dream.
Yeah, it was the most wild dream I've ever had. Just the way it felt so crystal clear and prophetic. It was definitely, I feel like it falls under that category of prophetic for sure.
Okay. While you were having the dream, did it feel like you were more conscious and awake than you are right now?
I would argue in a way, yes.
Okay. When I ask these questions, I want you to try not to go too left brain on me because that isn't going to be helpful. I want you to listen to your heart and your guts and your instincts. Why do you feel you needed an initiation illness?
I was living the dominant myth of our society today, which is very patriarchal in nature. And I needed this illness to bring me into my soul's true self. And that involves embodying a lot of the lessons of the divine feminine and bringing that more and expressing her throughout this world and as my soul.
Has your career changed? What were you doing for a living during this period that the initiation illness began?
Yeah, I was working in the corporate world, just working my way up through that ladder. I still have that job currently, and it's been a really great opportunity to allow me to pour creativity into a health coaching business, actually, that I really want to manifest as my life's work.
When you say that the job that you have now is allowing you to pour creativity into it, how are you managing to juggle these two separate worlds?
Yeah, it's not easy. I don't, think there's ever a way to do it 100% perfectly or successfully, but I'm very blessed that this role has come into my life to allow me flexible working hours and great benefits that allow me to pour my soul into, the time that I have to build my dream.
Right. You mean the time that you have before you transition out of that career?
Even time that I have day to day.
Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah. I go to work and I work my corporate role, and it's honestly been a great spirit gym playground for lessons in communication and lessons for how I can, embody my true self in that essence, and then use the wonderful abundance that it provides for me to be able to create and build out my dream of being a writer and a healer and a health coach.
Okay. I was just wanting to be clear so I didn't make any assumptions because what you said could be interpreted other ways. Why do you feel you needed a dark night of the soul?
I was wearing a deeply masculine shell. I was wounded as a little girl, just growing up in a school where there was bullying and there was a lot of social climbing and all of those energies that felt very superficial, and it didn't feel like me. And I put on a really strong protective shell to navigate through that because I was afraid. I really prided myself on academic success and intellectual accomplishments, hiding behind that achievement so that I could be perceived as worthy and good enough. And, because I didn't feel pretty and feminine on the inside. And it was this illness that really stripped me out of, all of that superficiality and exposed my raw soul, my truth, and allowed me to transition into embodying the energies of the divine feminine that I find are true beauty and authenticity, of flow, of connection with nature, of channeling love.
Which of your parents or either of them do you feel might be who your academic success and that persona you were developing was likely to get you the most approval from?
Yeah, so it's interesting because I've thought a lot about this, and my parents both, while they value academic success and they've had a lot of success in that world themselves, they were never very hard on me for that. They always just wanted me to do what I love and just do the best that I could. And I feel like it was the energies of the people around me, the teachers, the parents of other children, the friends that I made in school, where I felt such intense energy and felt like I had to form those shells for.
So it was a
Yes.
social conditioning response.
Absolutely.
Okay, very good. Now, this dark night of the soul, what has it ultimately brought you?
The most beautiful purpose and beautiful way to live, through a lot of pain and a lot of breaking down all of those false beliefs. I At the time, I called it my wilderness season because it brought me into spirituality, but I didn't know much about it at the time. So I started by exploring Christianity, since my mentors at the time were Christian. And so I joined a Bible study, and I found so much magic, so much synchronicity when I connected with Christ consciousness, unconditional love. But as I journeyed deeper into the belief system, I ended up turning away from the path because of the perceived hypocrisy of fear-based rules that I was being told about, and there was a lot of extreme judgment of others. And so at the time, I didn't know it was an initiation, but now I do. But I correlate that time to my wilderness season because I was actually living in the woods in a house with a little bit of a mold issue, and I was in an actual physical setting of darkness, in addition to, in my mind, really undergoing that spiritual death in order to be rebirthed. And during that time, I actually had a very brief vision during sleep paralysis when I took a nap and I woke up and I was paralyzed, and uh, I couldn't move, but I heard this sound that sounded like a radio transmission frequency. And I saw on the television in the living room where I was napping a beautiful video of blue waves lapping, and I heard these ocean waves. And when I came out of it, obviously the TV was off. It hadn't manifested in the physical, but it felt kind of like you were saying earlier, so real. And that began a deep journey, learning from the water element, learning flow to release rigidity, learning how to just let things be and to be versus to achieve. And Mimi and Chase of the Medicine podcast, who I know you've worked with, Mimi taught a beautiful course back then that I was a part of, and she was the first person who taught me about what the divine feminine was and helped unlock that energy for me. Actually, through, it was a quote from the book Dare Lovers by David Dida, and it really summarized, a huge pattern that we're seeing in women these days who are growing up in that programmed world, right, of academia and having to climb the corporate ladder and feeling the need to put on these shells in order to cope, and learning how to break down those masculine shells to embody love.
Okay, great. So if we looked at, in a simple sort of encapsulated statement, what has died and what is being born or has been born?
The masculine shell that I put on because I was wounded and I didn't feel loved or good enough is what died. And what's born is expressing the most loving, the unconditional love that has always been there and has always lived inside of me, that I can channel through source. And putting my own unique spin on it is who I am, Nicki Wolfe, and being able to express that freely without the fear, right? The fear, there was so much fear of judgment and fear of how it was perceived. and that fear has been lifted, so I can move forward and express my soul's deepest truths unconditionally.
Good. You see, that really does lay the context and the foundation for the dream. This is why it's so important to really tap into what's going on in a person's life. And for me, as the therapist, you see, what I want to do is I want them to hear themselves talking this out. So part of it's for me, so I can have the context to do my work. But you'd be amazed how many patients that I do this work with will be telling me what's going on in their life. And it's as though for the first time they've actually looked at their own life. That it's only when they look to express to me what's going on in their life that they're actually realizing what's going on in their life. It's like they're so caught in habitual patterns of behavior and patterns of thinking that it takes some kind of a crisis to shock them into a state of awareness of what their choices are and what their beliefs are and how those are working or not working. For example, many of them, a huge percentage of them, came to me living out, shall we say, Christian dogma or some religious dogma, but only through the pain of crisis realized that it really wasn't nourishing their soul. For example, one that I've seen countless times is people are staying in marriages because they gave a vow till death do we part, yet they are 10, 15 years into a marriage and they wanted out 2 years into the marriage but had kids. And so they are afraid to listen to their soul and follow their heart and leave and find somebody they're compatible with because they think they're going to burn in hell if they do that. And I can't tell you how many times that story's played out. So as a side note, what your explanation of your life is telling me is that you're actually maturing out of the child archetype into the warrior archetype, which in Spirit Gym symbolizes recognizing who you are, what your own authentic needs are. And it also symbolizes that your ego is now forming. Remember, the ego its chief functions are who am I and who are you? What is my version of right versus wrong? What is my version of should or shouldn't? Who is self and who is other? What is my responsibility and what is your responsibility? Until then, all these things are governed by some sort of an authority figure, be it a mother, a father, a professor, a scientist, a doctor, an external authority. The Bible is an external authority, right? So that shows you where you're at in your own development. And the dark night of the soul, I interpret as a therapist as you having to let go of the child's desire to please other people to fit in and step into who you really are. Mm-hmm. And for those listening, statistically speaking, research currently shows that about 70 to 72% of the world population, regardless of physical age, is still in the child archetype, which speaks very poorly for our education system, our political system, and our religious systems. Because the function of religion is to help you grow into who you really are and celebrate that and live that. But when it stops you from doing that, you don't have religion, you have corporate religion, which means you're being used as a member of a cult or an organization that is directing your life and determining whether or not you're going to burn in hell or not and things like that, which is classic cult stuff. Okay, so let me go through it with you. I awaken in a pristine bed. What does a bed symbolize in your life right now?
Rest.
Rest.
regaining my chi.
Chi, right? And you're laying in bed with your new husband.
Partnership, companionship.
Yeah. Intimacy.
Yeah, intimacy.
Deeper connection.
Deeper connection for sure. It was hard to connect at times during the initiation illness when it was really intense because I was so focused on battling the symptoms that I had a harder time connecting back into reality and living life. And I feel like that has gotten so much better, but that was a really big challenge during that time.
Now you know why I say I before we always.
Exactly.
Otherwise, too much connection, even to somebody you love, can actually deplete you of so much life force you can't heal. I was wearing a pristine white gown. What does that symbolize to you?
Purity. Everything in the dream was white and pure.
A gown. Where are gowns often worn?
Feminine and flowy, kind of like a goddess or a princess.
Ceremony. Gowns are worn in ceremonies. So I was entering into the beauty of rest, wearing the purity of ceremony in a pristine white bedroom. What does a bedroom symbolize to you?
Kind of like a personal temple.
Good. So I was in my place of rest. I was in a ceremony in my temple with the sound of the ocean's calming waves out the window. The ocean, what does that symbolize to you?
The flow of unconscious, the flow of spirit.
Good. What else?
In my personal journey, I've associated it with the divine feminine. And
very good. That's what I was waiting for. The ocean's the divine feminine.
Yeah.
Okay, so with the sound of the divine feminine, waves, what do they symbolize?
They symbolize flow and cycle of the Om, learning to rest in between that lull.
And if I can look at you right now and call you Nicki and you know who you are.
It's the expression of my unique soul as Nicki right now.
You are waving. You are God waving. So you are the divine feminine waving. But you had to go through this initiation to realize that. Okay. What does a window represent to you?
Almost like a new world, peering out at something new, something outside of myself.
Windows give you the ability to see through a transitional barrier, don't they? Right? A prison cell with no windows is really a prison cell.
Yeah.
But if you put a window in it, it's almost like you can feel more of God because light comes in and you can see what's going on outside. So it expands your sense of self. Absolutely. So the window is suggesting that you're very close to touching the ocean of the divine feminine and that you're being waved at, calling you forward. Hey, here I am. And you need to come out, right? Don't look through the window, come out and be who you really are meant to be because it's who you really are. And the white, is, as you said, the symbol of purity, but white contains all the colors of the rainbow. So that's a symbol for going from the idea of living to actually living. You understand?
Absolutely.
Because the white's saying, I have everything within me, but I can't express it without your participation. So I must get outside and live my colors, share my colors, like a peacock, right? Sharing its colors. So you're saying here, just to review, in the dream, I awake in a pristine white bed, wearing a pristine white gown in a pristine white bedroom, with the sound of calming with calming ocean waves out the window and perhaps the presence of iridescent white ocean waves outside the room, but nothing else. Could you explain the outside the room, but nothing else part?
It was just this room that I was within that's just suspended in, you can call it space, with these waves outside of it, and I couldn't see anything else as far as the eye could see or perceive anything else.
Okay. What might that symbolize to you?
I almost felt like I was being held by the love and the softness of the divine feminine throughout this process, because it was very painful and difficult, and letting go of rigidity was a huge part of the lessons I was learning. And I feel like in this my safe temple, I was being held by her.
Good. And the nothing else to me as a therapist also symbolizes you've been removed from the distractions.
Mm-hmm.
You're only able to perceive what is most important right now.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So the soul is saying this is the most important thing for you to focus on right now.
Yeah.
Okay, I have this lucid realization that I am not in a realm where I am alive, and I am in an in-between place, in between life and death, not the physical realm. That's a very interesting statement. What that tells me therapeutically, and I'll need you to confirm this, you're in between being somebody that you're not and somebody that you are.
100%.
I become terrified I have potentially died and begin to wildly thrash in the bed due to a panic attack, racing heart at this point. I was not ready to cross. That's the fear symbolically of the child having to step into its independence and take responsibility for its own self-approval, its own self-validation, its own self-love, and not being dependent on other people. Because to the degree you depend on other people, you basically have to conform to their wishes, or you lose that sense of love, connection, and feeling. But the child also faces the reality that now I actually have to take on responsibility, and am I ready for the responsibility of being an adult in the world? This is one of the key things that keeps people in organized religion, because they become extended family, but they also maintain the childlike state, because once one's indoctrinated, there's a tremendous fear of not being loved and being attacked and being rejected, which the warrior has to confront directly, or they're not a warrior yet in the warrior archetype. So there's that element to all of it. So the panic I see as the challenge of the embodied soul moving out of the state where it perceived that it could achieve love, recognition, and success and acceptance, but realizing that it's not working, it's actually making you sick, to saying potentially, wow, I'm tired, I'm dealing with all this stress and this illness. It's scary to think that in this state, now I have to go take the responsibilities of loving and caring for myself and navigating the world as a warrior, where chances of conflict and disagreements and rejection are real.
Absolutely. And it's so powerful to interpret this dream like this, a couple years later, because everything you've said, I'm feeling right now in my life so strongly, of transitioning into that warrior archetype and pushing past the fear of being my true self and expressing that to the world, knowing that the fear that I had of approval was far worse, and being myself. I know, like you say, right, there's a quote where you might be able to say it better, but a soul would rather die, right, than live another soul's story or myth.
Yes. There's an old saying, if all our troubles were hung on a line, you could take yours and I would take mine. And what that means is it's actually, we're more capable, no matter how challenging our troubles are, to deal with our own troubles than we are with somebody else. Because if we deal with our own troubles, we grow. But if we deal with someone else's, well, we're actually usually doing something other than what we should be focusing on. And we're potentially disabling that person, because it's like trying to go to the gym for somebody. You can't do it. They can't go to spirit gym and get someone else to help them grow by doing their own work. It's impossible to do. So there's that element. The numbers 2, 2, 3, 2, 3. Let's look at that. You have 3 2s. That's the high priestess.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever you have any number in numerology appearing multiple times, it's multiplying the power of that number or that message. So you have 3 times number 2, which is the high priestess archetype, which represents the soul within you. So there's a very, very strong message from the soul, and you've got 2 3s, which is the divine feminine, the mother, the empress. It is the feeling nature and the organizing intelligence of the divine mother, the capacity to intuit, to feel, to know, and to sense, and to keep people together. That reduces to 12, which is the hanged man. And the archetype of the hanged man is saying, you're at a choice point. If you don't pay attention to how you keep hanging yourself up, then you will be hung. But if you use this dark night of the soul as a chance to invert your consciousness from ego, external, programmed awareness into a deep visitation with the unconscious, which is the ocean waves and the ocean, then you can actually grow deeper in your connection to your unconscious, which is where your soul and your spirit's presence and voice reside. And only by consciously inverting our consciousness, which is the positive aspect of the hangman, can we take what was previously unconscious. I have God's love in me. I don't need someone else to tell me about it. So the inversion that the hangman is saying is that is your dark night, but it's up to you to use it positively, in which that's why the hangman has a halo. Mm-hmm. The halo says, I'm hanging out, but I'm really taking advantage of this opportunity to awaken, right? That's the hangman. The hangman's got blonde hair, which symbolizes consciousness. And so 12 reduces to 3, which is the divine mother. It's the feminine. It's the divine feminine. And so here you are being centered right into that. So do you see how your soul is actually using numbers? So we can also look at numerology, and we can look at the key words. You remember you have 3 2s. So when I say these words, I want you to multiply the power of them by 3 to see the significance of what your soul is saying. The key words for number 2 are balance, harmony, and partnership. And there's a 3 times emphasis on that.
Wow, that's incredible. So when you were talking to Pablo about, obviously his dream had the major arcana in it, I was thinking, what would the 3 that I'm being pulled to right now be? 3 is what came up in my mind, and it was Temperance, the Star card, and the Lover's card.
Very good. I won't expand on those because it'll take too long. Okay, but now you have 2 3s, the key words of 3, which is also quite cool. Vision, imagination, the joy of living. You're revisioning yourself, which requires the use of your imagination. You've got to take your initiatory illness and reimagine it, not as an illness, but as a teacher and as a guide, because it's redirecting you. And it's literally saying, pay attention to me or you will die. Mm-hmm. And you're clearly have stated that you are now much more centered in the joy of your own living.
Absolutely. I feel like, again, so wild to interpret this dream right now, because it took the last couple of years to get to this point where recently I've been living so vibrantly, and I owe that to your incredible Spirit Gym program for being that gym and that playground where I can figure all that out in my own unique way. So thank you so much for that.
Well, you're welcome. That's exactly why I created it, to help people just like you, but in a deeper archetypal sense, because it deeply concerns me as a teacher and a guide to others that we have so many people dangerously caught in the child archetype, and that religion is not serving them. It's become sort of, this is why I believe it was Dostoevsky, if I remember right, he said that religion is the opiate of the masses, because what's being taught is not real religion. It's cultish, conformist behavior. It's not actually taking people deeper into their own heart and their own relationship with God. It's turning God into a bunch of ideas on paper that ultimately leave people insecure about God, scared of God, actually, which is sad. Let's continue. I turn in the bed to see Noah. Noah?
My husband.
Right, but Noah?
Yeah, like Noah's Ark.
Noah's Ark?
Yep.
Which was to save you from the flood.
Yeah.
Which, in the myth, kills everybody but anyone that's not on the ark.
He stood through some of the darkest nights during that initiation and that symbolic death, and his love carried me through that 100%.
Now, just so you know, we have to stick with dream interpretation principles. You're in bed with a male, that represents your animus, which is the spirit of the woman. It is the masculine principle that is the one that is capable of making tough decisions, being rational, and getting things done. So you turn to your ability to think rationally, to be active, and to get things done. It was laying in bed with you. But this time, getting things done in a rational way that were important to Nicki, not to everybody around her. Okay? Now my husband. Well, alchemy, the crowning jewel of alchemy is the marriage between the masculine and the feminine aspects of an individual. So you're basically laying in bed with who you've now married, which symbolically says, through this process, you've been able to integrate your ego, your conscious, rational part with your feminine feeling nature to become balanced and whole.
Absolutely.
Okay? But I felt as if it were a spirit entity taking on his form, so I was less afraid. Well, I just said, it's your spirit. It's your animus.
Mm-hmm.
And his eyes were not human, but swirling, black, iridescent, dark blue. So that's like deep ocean water, isn't it?
Absolutely.
And swirling is the energy of the spiral. The spiral is the most primal pattern or geometry of the entire created universe. Geometrically speaking, it's the spiral that symbolizes growth. The Tai Chi symbol, if you were to see it in a three-dimensional reality, would look like a boat's propeller. Instead of being in a two-dimensional surface, it would be moving you through life, through time, through the ocean of God consciousness, so that you can have an experience. So there you see the explanation of that. His eyes were not human, but swirling, black and iridescent, a dark blue. Blue is also, as you know, the color of communication and expressing your creativity through voice and the use of your arms and hands, which is symbolic of building your dream, communicating and building your dream. So symbolically, he represents the taking action on communicating and building your dream. A low, booming voice spoke to me through him. Don't worry, it's over. Okay, so that low, booming voice, in my interpretation, is the voice of yourself, your Kidra, your guiding self, your guiding soul, the essence of who you are. The self is the wave of the ocean that gives the illusion of individuality, without which love could not exist. You see, if there was no husband to love, you couldn't love him. So he's another wave on the ocean that you are making connection to. So the low booming voice spoke to me through him. Don't worry, it's over. So this symbolizes that your aloneness is over, that you've learned the lessons, that your dark night of the soul is over. And the aloneness is over. It has a double message because you're now married to him.
Yeah.
So you see that symbolically you had the alchemical union in two dimensions, in the spirit dimension and in the physical dimension. So you got on the boat of transformation with Noah and now have landed on the other shore to consummate the marriage, which is also symbolically the beginning of a new life with partnership in an adult relationship. Before we finish, I have to do my job as a therapist and say, Nicki, how does this interpretation sit inside of you?
It's so true that I can't even comprehend it. It leads me to that paradox feeling of, oh my gosh, it took a couple of years more of experience and where I'm at now to truly see this dream and understand it, the way you've interpreted it, everything that you've said. All of these themes have awakened in my life to this day very, very strongly.
Good. So do you feel now that you have a bit more context to engage your own dreams with?
Absolutely.
I was just going to say, do you realize why I said in the introduction that dreams come from the highest self, the spirit, the soul, and the unconscious to guide? In other words, the dreams are the ocean talking to the wave of itself.
Absolutely.
They're not, as it always blows my mind how all this sort of neuroscientists say, oh, dreams are nothing but brain fodder, it's like, I just feel so sorry for people that are caught, but that's the level that soul is at. So it's okay. They'll eventually wake up to a very intense dream one day and realize that's not just brain fodder.
Yeah. So at the time of the dream, right, I interpreted it from a very material, egoic perspective. And that number 22323 actually showed up 2 days later when I was searching for an apartment to move into, and the unit was number 22323. But
No, that's wild.
It was this pure white, sacred. It felt so sacred with vaulted ceilings, and it felt so clean, so pure. And it was above my budget at the time, so I said, no, I'm not going to take it. And then I went and looked at other places, but none of them worked out. And so I called the place back, and they go, we have one more unit. You need to see it and sign fast. And the way it worked out was I signed the lease on 2/23/23. So that's February 23rd of 2023. So that number, that is how I interpreted the dream back then. If this was a message for, my physical transformation to, transition into this new life to embody it. And the messages that you're sharing with me right now feels like this dream, it has to have been my highest soul talking to me. It was 100%, because all of the messages that you've interpreted right now is exactly what I have been embodying since that point, in my deepest truth.
So this highlights the point that dreams are often multidimensional. So encoded in a dream can be messages about physical reality, messages about your financial life, your spiritual life, your intimate life, about what needs to heal, what needs to be accepted, what needs to be let go of. I mean, dreams are mind-boggling. I mean, there's I've sat down with patients and spent 2 or 3 hours working on one dream, and out of it came, 6, 8 different important realizations, all of which the patient was like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, to the point like, how could I not see this? It's like the old saying, hindsight is 20/20 vision. And that's one of the many, many reasons that I so deeply appreciate and study Carl Jung, because the depth of what he gave us, it takes someone like Rudolf Steiner to even compare to it. In fact, I would put Rudolf Steiner and Carl Jung as equals in what they brought humanity, but took very different paths to do it. And studying both of them is even more rewarding, because I can import Steiner and Jung at the same time, and it's like having a completely different set of eyes to look at. And where those two viewpoints converge is usually where you need to look the most. So in Steiner's model, you have now come out of the childhood stage of development, and your awareness soul has turned on, which is asking the question, is it really true? But your creative soul and your intuitive soul are also coming online very strongly. So you can see that from the story of the corporate process and what that was all about, now you're asking, is it really true that this is who I am and this is what I should do and this is how I achieve success? And your intuitive soul is guiding you through your dreams and through your spiritual practices and your ceremonies. And your creative soul is alive in the manifestation of your new line of vocation, saying this is, the gift that I want to give other people. And something drew you into my life and into Spirit Gym to give you the tools to really have the ability to not only do this for yourself, but to do it with other people.
Absolutely. And how that plays out multidimensional 100% is the case, because how I was channeling that through the physical was during that dark night. All of my furniture, all of my clothes, the way I was barely expressing myself was very dark. I had very dark, almost black furniture, very dark clothes I was wearing. I was kind of hidden away and cocooning. And then I moved to this, transition right after this dream where everything was a blank slate. It was like a blank white canvas. Where I was living was white. I made all my furniture very light beige, very white. I just wanted to dress in beige and white and be that blank slate, that blank canvas. And since joining Spirit Gym, I've been able to draw upon that creative energy, and I've been expressing color into my life in ways that I've never done before. And I see that playing out, on the physical realm, within my soul's realm, within all of those dimensions and those messages that are at play.
And you've gotten more into art, haven't you, since you started in Spirit Gym? So you've been able to go from the white bed sheets to unfolding the colors of the rainbow.
Absolutely. Yeah. And pushing past, right? There was that little bit of fear of my art isn't good enough, right? It's not good enough to be loved by someone else or to be received by someone else. And I've been able to laugh at it and look at that from an outside perspective, saying, haha, that's that mask in that shell. But my true self is just going to splash paint everywhere and do whatever I want to express, all of the beauty that's within.
Very good. Well, fantastic. It's really fun for me to be able to participate with you in your life process, in Spirit Gym and in the forum and in this dream assessment and in your healing process. And I know it's an important one because, as I told you, I had that vision when I was speaking to you in Spirit Gym, that you were being guided by Ishtar. And that also, as you know, turned out to be an important guiding figure in your life that has, and my point is, my agreement with my unconscious is with my soul is don't show me things clairvoyantly unless I'm supposed to tell people, because there was a time in my life where I was seeing so much in people that I just felt disabled. It's like, oh my God, the people are in such terrible pain and they're so hurt and lost that I just like, God, how am I supposed to help this many people? It was just so painful for me. So now when things come up, normally I have to shift to what's called second sight or clairvoyant sight. Like right now, I'm just looking at Nicki on the screen. But if I was working with you privately as a client and I needed to look into something, I would have to go into a hypnagogic state and go into a bit of a trance, and I would travel into your energy field and look around like you would be looking around in a place you might want to buy. But so my soul brings it up, and all of a sudden I'm looking at you, and there's this amazing being standing behind you, getting my attention, waving to me. I want you to tell her about me, And so that's my point, is that this happened as a gift to you. And I know it's significant because it showed up in the middle of a conversation where I wasn't expecting it or looking for it. And you know the rest of the story because you did the research and saw what you found, and which was quite amazing for me to read too, because I get just as surprised by these things as the people that I give them to.
Oh, no, that was the most incredible share. And I'm so grateful that your soul felt called to share that with me, because I've recognized that she's been there with me the whole time. I look at this dream and I look at all of the energies that have been gently guiding me and holding me throughout this process. And I look at where I've arrived now, and it's transitioned where I can call on her at any time and be like, all right, give me something wild and fierce and feminine, not just soft and intuitive. And she'll play it out in a way that makes me cackle. And it's been so incredible. And I feel like it's led to even more exponential surrendering and falling into my true self and embodying that energy of the feminine. So thank you.
Beautiful. My suggestion would be to ask her to paint with you.
Ooh, that's a good one. Absolutely.
That'd be a great practice. Just call her in empty and say, guide me, take the brush, work through me. I love just making room for God metaphorically to move through me. And I think painting is one of many practices we can use to practice getting our ego to sit in the back seat and get over the kind of drama that it's so programmed to create. Because through these practices, and you look at what comes through you artistically, for example, and you go like, I could never paint that. I don't even know how I did that. And it's God saying, I'm always with you, and we can keep painting your whole life that way. That's what I came here. And that's your highest self calling you forward into your truest potential. And I think if more people had access to what I teach in Spirit Gym and learned to have deep connection to their highest self and could experience the joy of knowing that they're here for a reason, and that the gift of their life is always a gift to everybody else, then the nutrition that comes from that is really healing at a deep level and strengthening at a deep level. And I think it's just the opposite of the standard academic religious approach. I feel like the world's desperate for it, and I think that's probably one of the reasons that I was called to come into the world. Because believe me, there's days that I think, why did I do this? It's more of the same stuff. I've seen it over and over and over and over again. But my soul said yes, because you couldn't stand watching people fall into the trap of themselves. And so here I am, but here we are. So Nicki, thank you. I'm so grateful to hear of your healing and your progression and your joy of Spirit Gym and your marriage and your spiritual marriage. And I'm very excited for your future, because I think you're going to make one badass counselor for people.
Thank you, Paul. I owe you huge thank yous and gratitude on a multi-dimensional level for sure.
Maybe I'm a dream. Maybe you're not awake. You're just dreaming all this.
It's all right. It's everything.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. All right. Lots of love. Thank you. Thank you. And I will look forward to our next chance to interact, wherever that may be and however it may be.
Absolutely. Aho.
Aho. Lots of love. Our next guest on our Dream Interpretation podcast today is Asa Tolan-Powell. Welcome, Asa.
Hello, Paul. It is a dream to be here.
All right. We got dreams on top of dreams, baby.
Let's go.
How long ago was the dream that we're going to look into today? When did it occur?
It happened around 2 months ago.
Okay. What was going on in your life that was relevant at that time?
I've been trying to go for a transition of a job. I currently work for my father in our family business, which ironically is named after me. Yeah, I know. It's not my dream to be a scaffolder, and it's actually my dream to be a health coach or do something that's more aligned with the values and principles that I've learned for the Chek Institute, and one day do that full time.
Okay.
The issues, that's not my only issue. I have type 1 diabetes, and managing my blood sugar has been a massive factor and learning curve in my life. And every day I learn from it. And during that time in particular, I was struggling quite a lot to get my blood sugar under control. Extremely stressful to the body, and that's been the main themes. Trying to find a career or slot into somewhere into this world. Why am I really here? Yeah.
Okay, good. Right off the bat, transitioning out of the family business, working with your father to follow your heart and do your own career. So you're in exactly the situation that Nicki was in. You're transitioning out of the child archetype into the warrior archetype. And you're learning to take your own inner guidance and make that how you make decisions and how you value yourself and create value in your life. You want to help others too, which is a navigation. The child archetype is always about I. It's always about I want, I need. That's the survival orientation of the child. And coming into the warrior is always about who are the people that I am willing to lay my life on the line for. Because it's the adult archetype, right? So wanting to be a holistic lifestyle coach is wanting to share your love and in support of and in service to others, which is also all calling, because your clients will be from the collective, right? They won't be just one other person. So that's a big jump. Type 1 diabetes, that's a challenge of the third chakra, which is the main question of the third chakra is who am I? And managing blood sugar challenges is symbolically represents the inability to find sweetness in my life without external support. The insulin has to be managed when you bring in too much sweetness from outside of yourself. So symbolically, this is about cultivating self-fulfillment and creating a life that is metaphorically sweet from within you, not by getting your father's approval or doing what you don't like doing to make money, because that's not sweet. That always comes with challenges. And those are challenges to your own self-development. That's the trap of, that you heard Nicki talking about, the corporate world. So, it always invites a crisis. When did this type 1 diabetes emerge? At what age did you get diagnosed?
When I was 8.
That suggests to me that this is an unresolved past life issue, that you've come into this lifetime with it. Because you're still in the child, very deep in the child phase. And so when I see type 1 diabetes emerge like that without a long to-do, there's often a correlation to a life lived trapped under the control of other people, and figuring out, how do I get what I need without having to bow to the control dramas of others, or be what somebody else wants me to be to feel safe and secure, and be able to survive. So it would be very interesting for you to carefully monitor as you make this break into your holistic lifestyle coaching. My suspicion will be that when you're actually nourishing your own soul and stepping into your authentic self, that you're probably going to find your blood sugar is much more stable. So I'd like you to keep an eye on that. And if you remember, maybe 6 months into your new career or a year, let me know what your blood sugar is looking like.
When I was, just to add a little side note, when I was 18 months old, I had meningitis. And my life's always been I've always felt like I've had a very deep purpose for whatever reason, like a lot of us do. And when I was 18 months old, I actually remember having the fit, like having the whole episode and being in the hospital, and learning later on that I was the only one that survived and came out with no deformities, no, my health intact. And then obviously years later contracting or getting diabetes, or being diagnosed, I was shocked to realize that. But it spurred me on to think, no, I'm here for a reason. There's obviously a purpose to all this, and there's a reason why.
My urge is to tell you what Steiner has to say about childhood diseases, but I'll summarize it simply. They are often there to accelerate the growth and development of the sense of oneself. And meningitis is an illness of the nervous system, which suggests to me that there was unresolved wounds with your capacity to feel, experience, and relate to what was happening in and around you. And so the illness is actually often a detoxification process, a healing process. That's one of the problems with our medical system. They see illness as something to eradicate, but a lot of illnesses, especially in children, should not be medicated. They should just be supported by parents and skilled caregivers to allow the illness to move through the body and the spirit what needs to be moved out, instead of repressed, eradicated, or cut out, because that basically aborts the healing process. And that can have significant long-term consequences, of which I've seen over and over in my career. But the milieu that we're in is the way it is because it accelerates spiritual growth. That's the function of evil is to sharpen our awareness of what good is and harmonize to it to the degree that that's where our heart wants to be. Okay. Now that we have the context for the dream, go ahead and read the dream. I'll let you read it, and then we'll go through and do an analysis on it.
I was on a beach watching many boats. Me and some other people who weren't visible to me, but I could hear them around me, were standing watching a gigantic cruise ship sail away from a shallow beach shore. A small boat was driving recklessly into the wake of the huge cruise ship. They go against the current dangerously. Suddenly, people in wingsuits were dispatched from the ship, flying around the sky. All those standing near me were judging and shouting abuse to the small boat and to the people flying. Oh no, you can't go under that current or those crazy waters behind the cruise ship. The dream then shifted to me being in my childhood home. I must have been between 6 and 15 years old. I was having a wee at an inconvenient time. 3 to 4 females were in my home coming up the stairs as I was peeing, and I felt very embarrassed. The dream then shifted scenes where I was searching for my soul on the same beach from earlier. I had finally found it. It was a coiled up bunch of white snakes. Then it mystically mystically or magically transported through the floor. The scene transformed again, and there were two fairies talking, and they were speaking, and they said, "We must find the anima." As they turned around, they saw a bundle of white snakes on the altar, glowing white. I approached the altar. Perhaps now I was a fairy, or maybe I was myself, and I touched the ancient-looking altar with all of its scriptures and symbols. I then woke up.
Beautiful. Okay, good. This is a fun one. I was standing on a beach. A beach is a shore. That's where the water or the ocean or the lake or the river meets the land. So the water represents the unconscious, land represents the conscious. So when you're standing on a beach, you are at the junction of where the unconscious and the conscious meet, which is the ego, but in a deeper sense, it's the I. The I is the real meaning of ego is I. So it is the abiding function of God, the witnessing function, seeing itself as you. And being on the beach means you're on the border of where the unconscious and the conscious meet. Symbolically, it is the dream is saying, Asa, always be aware when the unconscious is trying to speak to you. For example, one of the reasons that you should never go in water if you use LSD is because people forget that it's water. They get so enamored with the beauty of the water, they try to breathe it and they drown. So symbolically, what I'm saying is anything that stops you from being conscious of the unconscious can lead to a metaphorical drowning in life. And, I have the advantage of having coached you a fair bit. You were drowning in the family business. Would that be a fair statement?
Absolutely.
And the unconscious is giving you symptoms, which we'll talk about because it's right in your dream. Watching many boats. Boats are symbols of souls. So whenever you see a boat in a dream, it means a soul. So if you're watching many boats, it means you're watching many souls. And then you say, me and the other people who weren't visible to me, but I could hear them, were standing there watching this gigantic cruise ship sail away from a shallow boat shore. So many people represents your soul group because they were watching with you. A gigantic cruise ship sailing away symbolizes another group's soul sailing away. Okay, so another people, which often means people with a different ideology going in their own direction. Okay.
I dream about being on cruise ships a lot.
Okay.
And as a younger man, I would go on holidays on cruise ships.
Well, let's just ask, what does the cruise ship mean to you in your life at this time, the concept of the cruise ship?
It feels almost difficult to answer. I feel like I always associate cruise ships with fun and
okay.
Like having a good time or rest, good memories.
Good. So when we take that and we go into the dream, me and some other people who weren't visible to me, but I could hear around, were standing on a cruise ship watching my gigantic dreams sail away from a shallow beach or shore.
Oh. Yeah. Okay.
So how does it feel inside when you're seeing your dreams and your fun sail away?
It feels awful, but it's funny to see it happening right in front of me.
How does that relate to the context of your life at the time of the dream?
I feel like it's the same. It's what you said earlier about Joseph Campbell, and you're climbing a ladder, and then you've realised that was the wrong ladder.
Or the wrong wall.
Yeah.
A small boat was driving recklessly in the wake of the cruise ship. A small soul was driving recklessly in the wake of my fun and my dreams. And who do you think that small boat was?
Me.
Right. And they go against the current dangerously. Suddenly, people in wingsuits dispatch from this ship and start flying around in the sky. Okay, so the person in the small boat is going against the current dangerously. The current is coming from the boat that represents your hopes and dreams, and it means that whatever you're doing in your life at that time is going in the wrong direction. It means if you keep doing this, you're getting further and further away, and you might have a crash of some kind because you're doing something very dangerous, going against the current of a huge ship. Suddenly, people in winged suits, so people are souls, wings in symbology means the ability to move through multiple dimensions, because the soul is alive all the way from God all the way down to the material plane. For example, when you're thinking about something, you're in the mental dimension. If you're dreaming about something, you're in the astral dimension. If you're needing to pay attention to what you eat because you have diabetes, then your orientation is to the etheric dimension, which is the dimension in which your soul holds your body together, and the body talks to itself and relates to itself. So the concept of winged suits is a symbol that there are people or other expressions of yourself looking at different dimensions as the ship. Suddenly people in wingsuits detach. So there's people jumping off ship to fly into other dimensions, which can represent your future expressions of yourself jumping off the ship to get your attention and say, hey, here we are, look over here, look over here. Because that's a very unusual thing to come off of a cruise ship, is people in winged suits. And it's also very dangerous because the cruise ship's not tall enough to make a free jump like that. And, you know, we know people that use winged suits usually have to go up, like, you know, on top of a skyscraper or hundreds of feet up. So it's saying that that part of your soul that wants you to do what you love to do is risking itself to get your attention. And it's already suggesting a challenge, because the boat, a ship that big moving away from a shallow area, is risking bottoming out already. So the dream's suggesting to me that the circumstances of your life at the time were such that an unlikely event of a ship moving away from an area that it shouldn't be in the first place leads to you going dangerously against the current, and then the unusual event of wings, souls jumping off a ship to get your attention and to make you look at what was really going on. And going dangerously against the current seems to me, as a therapist, to say you're going dangerously against the wishes of your father or your family, and it could risk your stability at work. Is there any truth to that?
I'm now recollecting that at the time of the dream, I'd been offered a new job in a new environment, doing a similar thing,
right?
Like working in film and TV on on commercials, which is a lot more money. But inside of my heart, I got the sense that it doesn't matter how much money I'm getting doing scaffolding or TV film rigging, it's not going to satiate me at all.
No, so there you are going against the current of the boat of your hopes and dreams, and the soul's jumping off saying, don't do it, look at us, come over here, we're having fun. You know?
I think now we've used the word, like, I use the word dispatched from the ship, but I think it's more like they're evacuating. Like they're saying, like, hello, yo, listen to us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Getting your attention, because that's a very strange thing to see. All those standing with me was shouting abuse, judging them. Oh, yeah. Like, oh, no, they cannot go in the undercurrent or crazy waters behind the ship. Okay, now without me explaining that, who do you think that is that's standing with you, abusing and judging them?
Because I couldn't see them more and more, I think that's like complexes or parts of me or I mean, obviously it's parts of me because it's in the dream, but
Mm.
I would say it's like complexes or scattered parts of me.
Yes, but it represents the part of you that's trapped in the collective, doing what everybody else thinks they have to do to make a living, to get by. So the dream is saying that you're confronting the parts of you that have used fitting in to what everybody else is doing in order to avoid judgment, criticism, and to get a sense of value and validation. But in contradistinction to that, the people jumping off the cruise ship are saying the opposite. They're saying, we're willing to do something very dangerous to get your attention, because what you're doing is leading to trouble, and a lot more trouble than jumping off a cruise ship with a set of, cloth wings. The dream then shifted into my childhood home from age 6 to 15. Remember, the home represents your body. So it shifts to my body, age 6 to 15, which is the development of your second chakra, which is sex, identity, sexuality, cultivation of life force, realizing that you're a unique individual and that you're different from mom and dad, and that you're growing into a man, right? So you all the urges start to come up. I was having a wee at an inconvenient time. A pee is a release. It's also the second chakra. It's a release of trapped energy, symbolically. And interestingly, the way you identify someone as a diabetic in the old days was you would taste their pee, and if it was sweet, it means they were becoming a diabetic or were a diabetic. So you're giving a symbol right there that leads to a connection to your actual health, the management situation that you're in. You've got to manage that. 3 to 4 females were in my home coming up the stairs as I was peeing. I felt embarrassed. So 3 to 4 females can represent 3 to 4 aspects of the feminine nature of yourself. Okay, so you could interpret that to be the aspect of nurture. It could be the aspect of the being fed, the aspect of being educated by your mother. In other words, you could look at the principles of the feminine and say these 3 or 4 aspects of the feminine, which is the soul of you, because you're a male, were coming up the stairs. I felt embarrassed. So symbolically, that means that if you follow your soul and you let your soul guide you, it's probably going to take you into situations that until you have stood on your feet enough to become a warrior and an adult, you're going to be embarrassed by not fitting into the collective. And that's one of the challenges. The ego is very afraid of the soul because the ego is all about fitting in, conformity, control, and not having to do things that make it uncomfortable. But the soul will stretch the ego and bend it, even if it has to break it eventually. That's what a dark night of the soul is really, if someone doesn't listen to their soul, then the soul will actually take that person into a crisis of such great significance that it fractures the ego to the point that it has to really look at what it doesn't want to look at, which is a grounding time. Like you heard with Nicki, she got a disease, okay? I felt embarrassed means that I'm still in need of other people's approval. I can't enjoy a pee in my own home without feeling embarrassed about it. And, I have to hide my anatomy. And yet at that age, most females would have just said, there's a young boy having a pee, and it wouldn't have been a big deal. Next, the dream shifted scene where I was searching for my soul on the same beach from earlier. Okay, so you see how the whole dream right up to this is actually about searching for your soul. It's all the same theme just being presented in different ways, but it's all about searching for your authentic self, not being what mom or dad thinks you should, or even what you've been conditioned to believe through societal influences. I found it close as a bundle of white snakes. So snakes symbolize transformation and life force energy are two of the key symbols, but the snake sheds its skin. So the snake is a symbol of transformation, which is linked to the fire element, because the fire element is the great element of transformation, and fire always turns one thing into something else. So you were searching for what I was meant to become, and I found a bundle of life force energy, and the white symbolizes purity. And as I said previously, all the colors are in white, but they're not being expressed. So you found a bundle of possibilities, which to me, as a therapist, you found a bundle of objectives that the soul is here to meet, but they're not resolved, they're not fulfilled yet. Okay, so it's good that you found them. And it's also symbolizing that when you actually find these snakes and live with them and let them live through you, that you'll be doing what you love to do, which will have a massive increase effect on your life force energy, because you will be in love. You will be expressing a labor of love, not a labor of survival or conformity. Okay? As a bundle of white snakes, then it mystically and magically transported through the floor. What does a floor represent to you in your life right now?
I just said the ground or grounding or...
Grounding?
Yes. Yeah, grounding, I'd say.
Okay, so the bundle of white snakes are my soul's potentials and my life force energy transported through my grounding. The scene transformed again. Two fairies were saying we must find the anima, which is the feminine aspect of you. That's the soul nature. What do fairies represent in your life right now?
Magic, like guides, magical guides.
Okay. And you've got the number 2 in there. So the key words for 2 are balance, harmony, and partnership. What's going on in your life as far as partners, intimate partners?
Yeah, I've been with my partner for coming to 8 years, and yeah, it's gone great. We're growing together.
Great.
And she's very supportive, and yeah, I love her very deeply, and it's evolved over the years. You know, we were different people at the start, and now we're who we are now.
Great.
Yeah.
The scene transformed again to 2 magical, mystical spirit guides that were saying that to you that you must find your anima, which is your soul. They frantically said. So you see, this is a call for you connecting to the healing force and the wisdom within you, not outside of you. As they turned around, they saw the bundle of snakes on the altar glowing white. What does an altar represent in your life right now?
Something sacred.
The word sacred means that which is worthy of sacrificing yourself for. If it's sacred for us to do prayer, it's because it's sacrificing the time to do other things to do that which is sacred. So when we look at that, they turned and saw a bundle of snakes on a altar, which is sacred to you. So it's saying that the fairies, the magical, mystical spirit guides, are directing your energy toward the snakes, which represents your soul and your life force energy, and saying that there needs to be a sacrifice, Asa. In order to find and become one with your soul nature, you're going to have to sacrifice something. So, Asa, what at that time and what now do you need to sacrifice to go deeper into your authentic soul nature with the concept that each of those snakes represents something that you're here to share with people that you have come to support by being here?
It feels like many things come to mind. I want to say that my job working for Dad, scaffolding, and maybe that means stability. But also that feels very scary to me as being counterintuitive of, survival. Because I believe that there you go. I believe that deep down it's like I can't make it as a coach, or like I can't succeed unless I'm doing something else to support it at the same time. And scaffolding earns me the most money, and all these stories come up, and obviously they're limiting beliefs. So I think I actually need to sacrifice, or take the time to really look into these limiting beliefs.
Well, I think that's true, but I think there's something else being told. And what I will share with you as an older man that's been on the trail a long time, and seen a lot of these stories unfold, including my own. I think the sacrifice that needs to be made is what would normally be called a weekend or rest. Because when you're young and you're beginning your journey into yourself and into your own vocation, there's a necessary need to do whatever it takes to build the new boat that you're going to make your journey on. So the sacrifice is that if you stick to just working for Dad, yeah, you'll have money and stability, but you're going to die inside. You'll attract a crisis like Nicki did. And so the real sacrifice, I don't think is necessarily quitting the job, because that could create so much stress on you that you won't be an effective coach, because you'll be having to medicate your own self-denial and self-resent for walking away from stability. So what I suggest you do is that you ask your dad if you could work one less day a week and devote that day 100%. And in fact, 2 days, maybe take Sunday off fully and really rest, but 100% of your effort on say a Friday and a Saturday goes to building the new boat, so that you can progressively transition and start putting clients in on Friday and Saturday. And when those 2 days are full, then ask your dad to have 2 days off a week. So you now do Thursday and Friday in your new business, but you do Monday through Wednesday. And since it's your father, who better to understand what you're doing, where most bosses would say, screw you, Now, you might have to work through some challenges there. And if he won't give you any time off, then you have to grow some billy goat balls and work through the weekend, which I've had to do countless times in my career and in my life to take care of my family and make transitions. And that's why you have to eat, move, and be healthy, or you won't have the vital resources to make a transition like that. You just won't have the life force to build, maintain one boat and build another one. So I really see the dream guiding you not so much into a complete sacrifice that leaves you vulnerable and naked and scared, because that's no way to start a healing business for people. A business built out of fear and insecurity generally only produces fear and insecurity. You understand?
Yeah. I have done that. I've done that. I work 3 days for my dad, but what I've done is I've replaced the other 2 days working on the biodynamic farm, which has been very fulfilling, but it's not my purpose. It's been very useful and very, I've made many, many links in the world, and I actually work for a company called Pharmacy, which is all about essentially changing the food system, and it's rooted in Rudolf Steiner's biodynamic approach and whatnot. And obviously, it's, again, very fulfilling. I've learned many things, but it's not my it's not my calling to be a biodynamic farmer.
So there's one of the snakes in the ball. Yeah. So what you've got to do, Asa, you've got to be very conscious of when your soul's guiding you into experience to gain the connection, the wisdom, and the awareness of why that piece of the puzzle is important. But once you feel that it's not nourishing you anymore, and there's a genuine sense of, okay, I got what I came to go, then you got to listen and you got to move on. See, I think that ball of snakes metaphorically is the pieces of the puzzle that Ace has to build to really become the one snake that is the true self. So you've got to gain the, like being a holistic lifestyle coach with an understanding of Steiner's principles and farming, and having put your feet in the dirt and really understanding it, makes you a much more genuine guide for people than just saying, go eat organic food, it's better for you. You know, so this has to come from your soul. So your soul's grounded you, so to speak, in what you're ultimately going to teach. So I think that's perfect, but it's very good that you're listening, right? You're aware of that. So great. One snake less, right? One snake less. Now you can take that life force energy and move it right into your business instead of being out in someone else's field, be in your own. Let's see. I approached the altar. Perhaps now I was a fairy. Okay. Oh, very good. What did you say fairies represented before to you?
Magical guides.
Guides. And what is your new career going to put you as?
A guide.
A magical guide. So I approached the altar, and perhaps now I was the magical guide, or maybe I was myself, and I touched the ancient-looking altar with all its scriptures and symbols. I touched the ancient-looking altar. What are you ultimately teaching people to do as a holistic lifestyle coach?
I want to say alchemy, but you're teaching people to manage themselves.
What are the foundation 4 things you're going to be teaching people?
The 4 things: Dr. Diet, Dr. Quiet,
great,
Dr. Movement,
and Dr. Happiness. Yeah. Aren't those ancient?
Extremely.
Aren't those the key things that people have had to focus on for as long as humanity has ever lived in tribes? Isn't that the ultimate scripture, and anything else is a distraction?
Absolutely.
And without those, can anybody really make a contribution to the world? Because they're going to be stuck in survival mode trying to medicate and surgically remove diseases. So there's your scripture and your symbols: 4 doctors and 6 foundation principles that are as ancient as humanity. And then I woke up.
Yeah.
Okay, so now my question for you is, with my support of interpreting the dream, what does it feel like inside when you hear this?
It just feels real, you know, like it feels like it's a long time coming, that I've known in my heart for so long that I need to go after it and I need to go and get it. But I've been afraid of letting those things go and sacrificing. Like you mentioned, you know, something needs to be sacrificed in order to, for me to be able to pour the life force and the energy into manifest my dream life, helping people.
Well, what you're describing is the legitimate challenge of being a man in the world. One day you're probably going to have children, and there will be days that you're tired and you don't feel like working. There will be days that your friends want you to go out and drink and smoke pot and not come home and be with your kids and be with your wife. And there will be many such opportunities to act like a boy when you need to be a man. And remember, a man is someone who says what he means and means what he says and does it. Even when it's uncomfortable, even when you're tired of carrying the weight of responsibility of a relationship and love and in life. And without men, tribes could not survive because there was nobody to hunt and protect. Women can't do it all alone, or God wouldn't have needed to invent men. And women have their own heavy burdens. They've got to carry babies. They've got to, go through a very painful initiation called giving birth. They have to put up with the needs of children 24/7. So you see, we each have to step into our warrior archetype that means I'm willing to give my life to protect what is most meaningful and most valuable and to protect who my people are. And if I can't do that, I'm still a child. I'm still, metaphorically sucking the hind tit. But if you do that beyond the point at which the world needs you, then you're actually part of the problem, not the cure.
Mm.
And that's, one of the reasons that we're in trouble worldwide, and especially in the industrialized nations, because the globalists and the powers that be have set it up to make us subservient to them because they don't want warriors around. They don't want men around because men and warriors say no to manipulation, say no to greed, say no to anything that's not fair to the people. And that's one of the reasons the CIA flooded society with psychedelic drugs, was to basically turn all the young men into flower children and, people that wouldn't stand up, people that would not resist the movement. And so now they've used junk food. Now they've neutered humanity. Now they filled us with video games that distract us and every other damn thing, right? So we've got a major crisis worldwide of a serious lack of development of young men into men. And the question you have to ask yourself is, what does tomorrow look like if these people grow up? And they're the ones that are supposed to be taking the responsibilities of running societies and a culture, but they're still trapped on video games, eating junk food, depending on mommy and daddy to bail them out of their stupidity. So you are an archetypal expression of the challenge that our world culture is facing, and your dream is suggesting to you that you grab the bull by the horns and do what you came to the world to do and accept the responsibilities of manhood, because ultimately the challenges of manhood are sacred.
Mm. Yeah.
They're sacred. And I have a question for you. If you do not move forward in the line that we've just discussed, what's going to happen to you, Asa, on the inside of yourself?
I'm going to die.
Simply put.
I'm going to die, yeah.
Isn't that just a straight up fact?
Yep.
And even if your body doesn't die, your soul will metaphorically rot. I mean, this is all metaphor. You got to see it for what it is. But, you will begin to resent yourself because the soul of you will know who you are and what you came to do, but the ego of you will have to hide from that truth. And the best way to deal with that is an addiction of some kind. And that's one of the reasons we have so much addiction, because when you use religion and the education system and the government system to trap young boys and men in their bodies so they don't grow up, then they end up having to have a confrontation between the soul and the social self. And that is so painful that most people have to drink it away, drug it away, or game it away, or acquire a disease so that they have an excuse to not participate.
Yeah. And it's funny you mentioned addiction, because my dad was a cocaine and alcoholic for a majority of my childhood, and that really, he's recovered about 16, 17 years now, perhaps more than that. He's a very strong man, and he's very spiritual and very powerful. But I always think of that as a reminder to myself to say, who do I actually want to be, and how did I feel when I was a child, seeing my dad that way. And thinking about it now, it's quite emotional, but it's so powerful to have a role model like that who transformed his life. And he became a real man, but he had to suffer so much.
That's the sacrifice.
Yeah.
What I'd love to hear from you is an honest statement from your self as you perceive yourself now to your soul's potential, to the real Asa waiting to unfold? I would like to hear a commitment to that part of yourself.
The only thing that springs to my mind, it's not PG, but let's fucking do it.
Aho, great spirit.
Let's do it.
It's not supposed to be PG because you're supposed to be out there on your own as a man, and men can say, let's fucking do it.
Let's go. Yeah.
Okay, so good. I think if you've learned anything today, it should be that your soul will get whatever message it has to you from the dreams, to the degree that it can't get it past your ego, your fears, your insecurities, and that your dreams are always telling you something very, very important. And the other suggestion is spend more time in communion with your soul, because then you're coming to the soul in a sacred relationship, and you're not waiting till the soul has to beat the ego's door down and send it a dream that's often hard to interpret. But all I'm saying is part of your commitment to yourself needs to be taking time each day, wherever you can find it, to really devoting yourself to deepening that connection to your heart and to your soul and to your highest self and to the part of you that's wise and that knows, so that you feel more grounded, that you aren't alone in this process, that you do have God inside of you guiding you and giving you the strength and the wisdom. And then pay really close attention to your dreams, because until you develop that soul connection to the point where you can talk to your soul like you'd talk to yourself or a friend, the dreams are going to be the parts that the soul needs to get to you, but it still doesn't have the level of connection and communication that takes time to grow into.
Yeah, thank you. No, and Spirit Gym's been amazing for me. It's been an incredible dive into myself over the last year, and I've had my dreams intensity increased, and I always take my dreams with very high regard, and I take time to write them down, and they're such important messengers, especially for me, where you've just got this filter, this ego that doesn't want to hear it, and the dreams are just that when you really sit and analyze them, the bare bones of them is like, wow, like
they're
the information.
Dead honest.
There's no mucking around with these dreams. And when you start to write them down, I tell my colleagues and friends, you have to start writing them down. If the notepad's not by the bed, you're not going to get them as clear as they would come out if you did. So thank you.
A lot less people would need to go on psychedelic journeys if they paid attention to their dreams.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations. I'm proud of you, man. It's great to see you growing up and really centering yourself and making the transition into an authentic warrior and finding that bridge between the safety and security that you need with your job, but also stepping into the new adventure and really just stepping into your wholeness and into the gifts that you came to the world to give, that only you can give. That's why you're here. There's something you bring to the world, each of us does, that only we can bring. And when we realize that, the existentialism and the nihilism and I'm just too little to make a difference, all that shit's out the window. That's for philosophers that like to mentally masturbate all day because they haven't found their soul's path yet. It only takes, one Mahatma Gandhi to change the whole world, or one Martin Luther King, or one Rudolf Steiner, or, one great school teacher. And on goes the list. Like any one of us can actually shift the world in a way that makes our life really worth living. And I think it's important for you to always make that the sacred part of yourself, that you came here as Ram Dass, as a God worker. This is why in Spirit Time I ask you, what do you do as God? what do you do with God and what do you do for God? Because if God is God, there's nothing here. So we're all as God. And if God is God, then there's nobody here but God. So we're all with God. And what are we doing for the rest of God that's more sleepy and more distracted and confused than we are? And those are the people that we are all here to help. And as we grow, there's more and more of them, because as we evolve, there's more people that we can help. And I think the people that you can help a lot is the people in exactly your generation, your age group, young men that are still too busy playing with their joystick to realize what it means to be a man.
Yep. Playing ourselves.
Yeah. All right. Well, lots of love, man. Great job. Thanks to all of you for listening today. Thank you to Pablo. Thank you to Nicki. Thank you to Penny for managing it all. Thank you to my sponsors for your love and support, your amazing products, and for putting money into the hands of biodynamic, organic, and regenerative farmers and feeding us so well and having high moral and ethical principles. Thanks to all of you that buy from the sponsors. It supports the podcast, it supports you, it supports the planet, and supports these amazing companies that are doing so much for all of us, which are so few and far between. And thank you. I hope all of you gained some deep wisdom today that you're willing to put to work in your own life. And for those of you that would like to go deeper into dream interpretation so you can really work with your dreams at a much deeper level, look in the show notes for the information on my upcoming dream interpretation workshop. If you want to do that, then my recommendation is sign up before the class is full. And I look forward to sharing something as awesome as I possibly can next week. Aho, great spirit. It is done. It is done. It is done. Woo!
Thank you for listening to Spirit Gym with Paul Chek and today's guests, Pablo Echeverria, Nicki Wolfe, and Asa Tolan-Powell. If you'd like to learn more about dream interpretation and how to uncover the messages your dreams are telling you, Paul's Dream Interpretation Workshop is just the thing. Join Paul for 4 online sessions, 1 a week, starting October 31st. Each session will be recorded so you can listen again or catch up if you miss one live. Go to paulchek.com/events/dream for full details and to register. To connect with Paul's guests from today's episode, you can find Pablo online at pabloakiaora.com, Nicki on Instagram at Nicola Rose Wolfe, and Asa also on Instagram at asa.tolan-powell. For more interaction with Paul and to share ideas and ask questions about topics discussed in this podcast, we invite you to join his Spirit Gym program and community. There are 3 different levels of membership to fit your budget and lifestyle, where you can participate in live Q&A sessions with podcast guests, access the members forum within the Spirit Gym community, where you can chat with other members, attend weekly virtual meetups with Paul, and study his comprehensive Master Key online program. You can explore the options and subscribe today by going to myspiritgym.com. And finally, if you enjoyed today's episode, please consider leaving us a 5-star rating and a warm review on the podcast platform of your choice. This podcast is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Audible, and YouTube.